First, we say thank you for your love, which surpasses all understanding. We're so grateful for this opportunity. We know today wasn't guaranteed, and so we thank you for yet another day. We're so grateful to come before your throne of grace and to cast our cares upon you. God, I pray a special prayer over our city, that you will let your love reign throughout the city, and that we all will cling to justice, love mercy, and serve one another with humility and goodwill. God, I also pray for our leaders in this room and across our city, that you will let humility, wisdom, and courage reign through our leadership. I also pray for our neighbors in need. We know that there are many among us who are going through hard times right now. And I ask that you not only teach us to love you, but to love our neighbors and to be there for them. God, your word calls for us to let our light shine before others, so that others may see our good work. And let this city be a light, a beacon of light for the nation and for the world. Thank you for yet another opportunity. Bless the decisions that are before us. Give us discernment, wisdom, and clarity. Thank you. We love you. And just so incredibly grateful for yet another opportunity to serve. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Our first item will be special presentations, with the first presentation being a presentation of diplomacy oath to student athletes and coaches.
Good evening, Mayor Parker and council members. Thank you for welcoming our very large group here tonight. We know you have a full agenda, so let's jump right in. My name is Matt Graves. I am the co-chair of the planning committee for the 7th edition of the Giochi del Tricolore Youth Sports Games in Reggio Emilia, Italy, which is taking place next month. We have 17 coaches and 77 young student athletes who represent Fort Worth in the USA in this event. Most are here tonight. I think every single one of them is here tonight. They're here to take the pledge of citizen diplomacy before you and this council. I'd like to take just a few minutes to introduce the coaches. So for baseball, we have Ronnie Cardenas. Raise your hand, there you are. Will Cruz, Dash Sproul, and Alexavier Cardenas. Boys basketball, we have Chris Anderson and Lonnie May. Girls and boys swimming, we have Coralie Flug and Abby Harbor. Boys volleyball, we have Kyle Kennedy and Stephen Bland. Girls volleyball, we have Kinley Buckholt, Alex Opperborn, and Abby Zipoy. And boys soccer, we have Amanda Novoa and Courtney Alvarado. So at this time, Mayor, you may take the floor and administer the oath of citizen diplomacy.
Thank you, Matt, and to all of our student athletes and of course our coaches, especially our coaches taking this many students abroad to Italy. I know will be an exciting trip, definitely not a vacation, as I was just joking. And to our parents and all of the family members, thank you for taking the time to be with us this evening. We are incredibly proud of not just Fort Worth sister cities and all it means across the globe to represent Fort Worth, but especially to citizen diplomats like each of you. And so with that, I'm going to administer the citizen diplomat oath. Please repeat after me. I state your name, have the opportunity and responsibility to improve relations between the United States and the rest of the world I am a citizen diplomat appointed. By Mayor Matty Parker. The Fort Worth City Council. And the Fort Worth Sister Cities Program. I'm committed to do this. For my city. My country. And my world. Let this be so. You're ready to go, guys. Congratulations. And just as a side note for all the parents, we took really great pictures before the city council meeting took off, so we'll make sure that May gets those, and we'll give those to all the parents here that attended. God bless and have fun on your journeys.
How quietly can we exit?
Some really good friends of ours went to their son to play baseball years ago, and John is the dad is 6'6", and he said he sent me a picture of the bed. It was like a twin bed, and his feet were this far off.
The next item will be a presentation of recognition of life-saving efforts, to members of the Fort Worth Police Department.
I'm going to turn to Councilmember Carlos Flores for this presentation. Thank you, Carlos.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Okay, before I get started, Chief Noakes, it's a little lonely up here. I'd like your officers to join me up front and center if you can. Yeah. We'll just give him a moment, Mayor. All right, that's a little better. Okay, Mayor, Council, I'm here today to offer a little humble recognition for a job well done by our Fort Worth police officers. On Monday, May 15th, there was an incident at approximately 7 p.m. in the evening. The Fort Worth Police Department, the Northwest Division, responded to a kidnapping call at the 3300 block of North Pecan Street. The caller told police officers that an unknown male had jumped into her car and driven off with her 6-month-old child. Now, she had the car running. Numerous additional officers responded to search for the vehicle, including narcotics, gang, directed response units. In just over an hour after that initial call, officers located the stolen car on Dean Street and took the suspect into custody. However, the baby was not in the car. Officers gathered information from the suspect and began checking the area. Approximately 5 minutes later, the officers located the baby in the car seat lying in a ravine nearby. The child was fortunately uninjured and reunited with their parent. The suspect was charged with kidnapping, abandoning, endangering a child, and auto theft. That was a good outcome. And I think we have a short video showing the recovery, just a few seconds worth of video. Can we put that up, please?
Hey, we have the baby at 3600 units.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Thank you. Now, what I was told, and what we all know, is that several officers were responding to this. And to give us a little more clarification on that, I want to call Commander Kim and the chief up here, if they would like to add some words. And I have a short list of some of those officers, but perhaps you all could more adequately recognize everyone that was involved, because it took a multitude of people to make this happen.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Councilmember Flores. Mayor and Council, I could not be more proud of this team that you see behind me. And what's so unique is they all came from different units, different teams, but that night they were all on the same team. There was a child who was in danger, life-threatening danger, and very quickly, very efficiently, very professionally, they went out, they got the job done. They didn't act as though some were in undercover capacity, some were in patrol, some were in specialized units. They were all part of the Fort Worth PD family, protecting the Fort Worth family. And this night they protected that child. And I believe myself, had they not acted so swiftly, this outcome could have been much, much worse. And the list is long, Councilmember, you're right. And I don't want to leave anyone off aside from what you have here, because we're talking about our call takers, our dispatchers, any citizen that called in and helped, and everyone that was out there with a Fort Worth PD badge that evening that made it happen. I could not be more proud for every single one of them. Thank you.
Okay. Let me make it really short. I know Chief pretty much covered everything, but I want to make sure to recognize some of the citizens, partners that we have, specifically BNSF, Union Pacific, and Texrail. They stopped their train operation just for the safety of this child that we're missing. So I'm really wanting to show an appreciation on behalf of the Fort Worth Police Department. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to acknowledge, again, the very short list, an incomplete list of officers that I know were involved, including one civilian, Sergeant Ronnie Chow with the gang unit, Officer Stephen Smith of narcotics, Officer Wesley Davis of Northwest Patrol, Officer Tom Gerling, Real-Time Crime Center, Sarah Carmrell of communications, Lieutenant Kyle Lawrence, Northwest Division Lieutenant, and of course, Commander Jason Kim, who is leading the Northwest Division. And I will read this recognition. Commander, since you head up the Northwest Division, I'm going to give that to you to hold. And it reads, City of Fort Worth is honored to recognize the actions of several Fort Worth police officers, including narcotics gang and director response units, in taking swift and selfless action to locate and rescue a kidnapped 6-month-old baby, resulting in a safe return to the family on May 15, 2023. The initial call reported that an unknown male drove off with the baby in the car. Numerous officers and response units located the stolen vehicle. However, the baby was still missing. The collaboration and timely investigation by these individuals saved the life of the infant, who was found uninjured in the nearby ravine. We extend our deepest gratitude to the officers and response units involved for their exemplary service, diligence, and efforts that safely reunited the baby with their parent and family. And therefore, our pleasure to give this certificate, again, a humble token of our appreciation. Thank you, one and all, and thank your officers. For a quick picture. I think we're going to be facing that way, right? Okay. There you go. Thank you. Yeah, of course, appreciate your service, sir. Thank you. Thank you for your service. Good job.
And officers, if you want to stay right there, that's fine, because the next one pertains to you as well. Chief, we want to leave those officers there. Thank you.
Yes, the next will be presentation of proclamation for the Fort Worth Police Department's sesquicentennial anniversary.
Good evening, and it's my great honor to recognize the Fort Worth Police Department, or as I like to call them, the very best police department in the country. And it's hard to imagine this is the 150th anniversary of the founding of the Fort Worth Police Department. I'm going to read this important proclamation of recognition for our department, and then ask Chief Noakes to address his department and this community as well. And whereas the Fort Worth Police Department was established in 1873 and has since marked as the primary law enforcement agency in the city of Fort Worth, 2023 marks the 150th anniversary of the founding of the Fort Worth Police Department. And whereas the Fort Worth Police Department has grown from 5 officers serving 4 square miles in 1873 to an authorized strength of 1,816 officers serving more than 350 square miles of incorporated city. And whereas Fort Worth police officers respond to calls for service, patrol the city, apprehend fugitives, enforce the traffic code, proactively intervene to suppress crime, assist residents in numerous and varied circumstances, and provide support to multiple city agencies and community outreach programs. And whereas the Fort Worth Police Department is committed to hiring and maintaining a diverse workforce that is reflective of all the communities that make up Fort Worth. And whereas the Fort Worth Police Department continues to find creative and innovative methods to build long-lasting community relationships and partnerships while demonstrating fairness, voice, transparency, and impartiality during encounters with the public. And whereas Fort Worth will celebrate 2023 as the Fort Worth Police Department sesquicentennial, and the City of Fort Worth employees and residents appreciate the police department's work to execute their duties with professionalism every day. Now, therefore, the City of Fort Worth does hereby recognize Fort Worth PD's 150th anniversary and celebrate the year 2023 as Fort Worth Police Department's sesquicentennial anniversary. Congratulations to Chief Noakes.
Mayor, council, thank you so much for this honor. 150 years, it sounds kind of crazy. Last month, I reached my 23rd anniversary with the Fort Worth Police Department, and I thought that was a long time. 150 years. The only reason we are where we are today as an agency is because we honor the department, the city, the citizens we serve, those who came before us. But what's really incredible is how far we've come and how much farther we absolutely will go. I wish I could go back to 1873 and talk to those 5 officers. Look at the difference between then and now. I wish I could go to 1923, 1963. Talk about the differences, the challenges. I really wish I could be here in the next 150 years to see where we go. And with the leadership of this city, with the support of our citizens, and with the absolutely incredible people we have on the department, I know we're going in the right direction. And the only reason the department is so good is because of the people. It's because of the officers of all ranks, because of our professional civilian staff, our volunteers, and again, our amazing community that supports us. I want to give special recognition to Marty Humphreys, who has some gifts for everyone today. If you want to go ahead and hand those out. We have a design set, a challenge coin set commemorating our sesquicentennial. It was designed by Marty and a few of her team. She put so much work into this, never asked for any credit, and rarely gets it because she doesn't let people know the hard work she does. So I'm letting you know the hard work that she does. Absolutely. I thank you so much again for this honor. And my prayer is that God grants us another great 150 years, even better than the last. Thank you so much, Mayor.
Next will be items withdrawn from the consent agenda.
We have 2 items to withdraw from the consent agenda. The first one is MNC 23-0441, and the second one is MNC 23-0439.
Items to be continued or withdrawn by staff.
And we have 1 item to withdraw, and actually 2 items. The first is MNC 23-0062, and the second is its companion zoning case ZC 22-192.
Mayor, next will be the consent agenda speakers, and I believe we have 3 of those.
Thank you, Jeanette. We do have 3 speakers on the consent agenda.
Just for reference point for our audience today, first of all, thank you for coming out to your Forest City Council meeting. We do have 54 speakers this evening, so that's about 2.5 hours of good commentary on zoning cases and, of course, a few other items. I just want to give you context before we get off and started this evening. Our first speaker is Debbie Stein, followed by Bob Willoughby.
Sorry, wasn't expecting you to be so fast. Okay, catch my breath. I'm Debbie Stein. I live at 2417 Stadium Drive. I've been in District 9 for 35 years. Thank you, Elizabeth, wherever you are. But now I'm carved out in District 3. It's a whole new life for me. So I stood here about 20 years ago when there was going to be a transition from the modern to the cultural center. So after that, I was president of the Live Theater League. So then we had a consultant come to talk to us about what we as the theater group wanted to see in the building. Comments were black box theater and affordable rental rates. And then after the consultant left, somebody came up and said, so he said it's an arts incubator. What the heck is an arts incubator? They didn't know what it was. Well, nobody really knew what it was, but it seems to be certainly the thing of the times. So I attended the final task force meeting, and I heard them describe the RFP as a directive to build a world-class arts incubator. Two things occurred to me after hearing that most members on the task force really might not know what an arts incubator is, and that they might think that it needs to be world-class. Well, I had some other thoughts about that. Not a criticism, just an observation. So, sorry, I'm out of breath, I came running down there. An arts incubator is not a building. It's actually what happens in the building. So by definition, it's a business incubator for the arts, which is a subset of the National Association of Business Incubators. It nurtures arts organizations and individuals by facilitating growth and professional development, supports artistic and creative innovation, and encourages collaboration and mentoring. Many of the things we now have and that they're actually doing in the building. So, we need to continue that, and it can grow. It's kind of a broad definition, but it's really there to help people in the community, no matter what their medium is. And it's not just performing nor visual arts. It also encourages collaboration and mentoring. Based on what we've heard from the community and the public meeting, the RFP should specify really what the community wants. Being too general is not really going to get the arts incubator. Boy, that went fast. Okay, and the other thing is world class. Think about this. Do we really want world class, or do we want first class? Materials, everything about it first class. Even stadiums are not world class. We're not competing with the world like a museum. We're not competing. We're just trying to provide something good for the community. So we want first class quality things in this building. I can see my time is up very quickly, so I will leave it there, and happy to talk to you further if you'd like to.
Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Bob Willoughby, who will be followed by Geraldine Jackie Cox.
Can you tell me how many non-agenda items I'm on there and how many agenda items I have? I signed up for 3 things.
You're currently speaking on MNC 23-0444.
Is that one agenda item or 2?
That's a consent agenda item. You have your 3 minutes.
Okay. Okay, 044. Oh, yeah, this is about the awards for the neighborhood associations, correct? Okay. Well, the neighborhood associations, most of them are corrupt. They are. The John T. White Neighborhood Association should not be on the data bank. I have documents to show this. I met with the city manager, David Cook, can confirm this. He won't answer, though, okay? And they're going to get an award for having secret meetings. not allowing people to run in John T. White. I can't be a part of the neighborhood association where I grew up at, went to school at. And they're going to give him an award? I've been there for 3 years yelling about John T. White. Just asking, I asked David Cook for one thing. Let us have an open election in John T. White, okay? They can run too. Just have an open one and let's see what happens. They won't because they're owned by Councilmember Gina Bibbins. That's true. Now, that's the only thing you get to speak on this one, or you get to speak on another one later?
You've got 1 minute and 48 seconds left.
For everything I got here. Okay, the other one is, one's a resolution. Oh, one's about the money with Gina Bibbins too, because she says this is one of these council members on these boards and stuff like that. This is a large amount of money for the board that Gina sits on, $22,495 to revise a road that Gina Bibbins sits on the board. That's why they point this up the boards. A lot of money here, okay? You get a lot of on the table stuff. And the next one's a resolution, so that's separately, right? That's not the same thing. Okay, well, anyway, the money for neighborhood, the data debate needs to be cleaned up. There should be some kind of guidelines to be on our data bank. And when you got proof that the neighborhood association it's on is not legitimate, they should be removed. And we should have a city manager that'll set that, because I had an hour meeting with him. He used to talk to me to that meeting. Now he runs from me. So that's what we got. The highest paid employee in the state of Texas is David Cook, our city manager. I have a 1 hour meeting on the film. Oh,
Sustained. That's not true. Keep going, Bob.
That's not true?
No, sir.
Okay, well, someone in the paper, well, Fort Worth Report said that, I think. Okay, my mistake then. He was, maybe he was the highest. Nevertheless, when you have an hour meeting with a man and he doesn't answer any questions from that, we're not getting what we should. You can't read my website, fwdistrict5.com. I got to do that better next time. You can't read it. Should be done in a different coloring. But nevertheless, if you go there, you'll see Mr. Cook running, fwdistrict5.com. Also, about our local election, I just contested it in court, our local election. I want you to see the video at fwdistrict5.com. There are questions about our elections that are unbelievable. An election company, of people of them, I called to find out. The guy gives you the answers, he hung up on me. I don't know what's going on here. It's crazy. Have a good night. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Geraldine Jackie Cox. And as Ms. Cox come down, just a point of clarification. We have quite a few speakers on the final report of 1300 Gendy Task Force. That's actually on the non-consent agenda, so we're going to get to those speakers in a minute. I just don't want anybody to panic when we get to the consent agenda, just letting you know. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. To whom should I give? Is it Ms. Senecal? Thank you, Council. I live in Jared Williams' district, District 6. I'm pleased that he is concerned about water issues. This is really, to me, more about a water issue than about hiring lawyers. What you're looking to do is hire lawyers to represent the city in a class action with something like 4,000 plaintiff cities lined up in a district court in South Carolina to share in proceeds that are maybe as much as $12 billion from 3M and about $1.2 billion from DuPont and some other settling defendants. The issue is going to be who gets what out of this pot of money that has been assembled by the lead attorneys in the class action as it has gone forward up to now. There are attorneys from Dallas, Barron and Budd, some attorneys from Louisiana, and the first name of the plaintiff firm is Conish. And then there's some attorney that you're looking to hire out of Houston. I'm sure he'll be a good lawyer. But this is going to be about how badly the Fort Worth water has been tainted by chemicals called PFAS. They don't go away easily. They are not easily removed from the water, and they are very toxic. They do cause cancer. And I feel like you owe us to let us know how dangerous our water may be. Because I just got a report in my email box from the city of Fort Worth saying, oh, you can trust the TSEC because they have high water standards, and we did well on their tests, but they didn't test for PFAS, and they didn't test for PCBs, which is the other long-lasting chemical that we have lurking in the bottom of our river both from Carswell Air Force Base and from all of the Encore anyway, we're in danger. Our water's in danger. And if you don't let us know going forward what you find from your testing, you leave us in the dark. And that seems so unfair to me. I want to know whether I may or may not safely drink water from my tap. I want to know whether the baby who lives next door from me, who is growing up on Fort Worth water, is in danger from growing up on Fort Worth water. And I don't like to see the thing go off to a class action settlement.
Thank you, Ms. Cox. Your time's expired.
Okay, let us know
Good
what
to
you
see.
find with your testing, please.
Thank you, Ms.
'cause
Cox.
We deserve to know that.
Mayor and council, the next item will be approval of the consent agenda as amended.
Council, I can entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion carries.
Next item is MNC 230439.
Councilmember Lausdorff, we have no speakers on this item. Try the other ones. I'm having mic trouble.
There we go. So I just wanted to bring this one out to the attention for those that don't know. This area is recently become rife with homeless in this particular underpass. So I've been working with Fort Police Department as well as our TPNW and TxDOT, Texpress, all those folks to make sure that before this art is actually put into place, the lights there are fixed, cages put up there to prevent any further vandalization. But I do believe I support this project, this particular art project, because I believe it's going to be a good first step in revitalizing this entire area. So if we're willing to invest this money in this area, I believe the rest will follow suit in here. So I just wanted to make sure that was known.
Thank you.
So with that, a motion to approve.
Got a motion and a second. Any other discussion, council? Please vote. Motion carries.
Next item is MNC 230441. And council, that was pulled by staff so that we could read into the record a correction in the contract number. The contract number should be 59029, not 55457. And with that, Mayor, we can entertain a motion on the item.
Thank you, council. Councilmember Nettles?
Move for approval.
Motion and a second on the floor. Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion carries.
Next will be announcements by City Council, including recent events, recognition of citizens, and approval of ceremonial travel if needed.
Councilmember Flores, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Parker. Looks like we got our first slide up there. On May 26, Juntos Se Puede Scholarship Dinner was held at TCC Northwest Campus. These scholarships are given to deserving Hispanic students. And this year, we had Norma A. Bazan, who's Assistant Tarrant County Criminal Defense Attorney, as our keynote speaker. I'm proud personally to continue supporting this for many community leaders who do support this nonprofit, and appreciate the catering by Dos Molinas Restaurant, a local Northside favorite. Tarrant County College, thanks for, again, hosting the event there at your campus. And, of course, Juntos Se Puede. Appreciate what Deborah Gallardo continues to do. Next slide, please. All right, May 29th, we celebrate the 94th Annual Fort Worth Memorial Day service at Mount Olivet Cemetery. Mayor Parker gave remarks along with the Joint Reserve Base Commander McLean. World War II veteran and U.S. Marine Don Graves sang a very inspiring rendition of God Bless America, and boy, does he have lungs at his age. It's very impressive. So we continue to thank those who died for our freedom and continue to keep, our nation safe in the example of their sacrifice. And, noteworthy too, there was a picture there. Mayor Parker and I ran into Gerald Glenn, who is a sergeant in the Air Force, and he also works for the IT department as an information security analyst. All right, next and final slide. Here on June 9th, we celebrated a dedication of Fort Worth historical marker in the stockyards behind the Livestock Exchange building. And this acknowledges two families. the Woody and Coach family, who have been important in Fort Worth's history and connections with the stockyards, specifically with the cattle industry back as far as 1849. So we had some members of the Woody family there present who still ranch out in Weatherford, who were there on hand to be recognized and celebrated. So appreciation to them, because our history is also part of our living history. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Councilmember Crane?
Two quick things. One, I just want to make this announcement, working on what Councilmember Lauersdorf talked about, homelessness, pulling together for the Police Department, Tarrant County Homeless Coalition, Presbyterian Night Shelter, and also our own city services with Camp Bowie District. This is really going to be a conversation about what's happening all over the city. We're going to use the venue at Camp Bowie District to talk about it. So everybody's invited, June 26th, Monday night, 5:30 to 7 at Ridgely Theater. And the second thing I just wanted to mention is today we got a great update on the Small Business Task Force and our partnership with the Institute for Justice and Cities Work, along with the Coffin Foundation, has produced the Small Business Insights and Policy Recommendations report. If anybody like one from the district, contact the District 3 office. But I think it's worth noting out of here, the Startup Champions Network Summit was held a week before last in Washington, D.C., and some of the things that we put in place here in Fort Worth were discussed and talked about and raved about. Dana Bergdorf, I appreciate you and all the leadership from the city staff and David Cook for making this a priority, and everybody else, DJ, Robert, everybody that's been a part of this. One of the things we created is a one-stop shop, and we started off about six months ago with one of the things completed, and now 4 of the 5 things that make us great in this report we've completed, and there's still more work to do, but it's interesting read and pretty proud of the task force and everything going on there.
I'm using the wrong microphone apparently, so it's making everybody panic. So just a second. But I'm going to go ahead and call on Mayor Pro Tem Gina Bivens, who has announcements.
Thank you, Mayor. This is to be very, very brief. For those of you who are interested in what's going on with our fireworks initiative and street racing, we're going to talk about those and much more this Saturday at a District 5 meeting. It is not the District 5 leadership meeting, it is a District 5 meeting taking place at the East Regional Library. We'll also talk about the Woodhaven TIF, that's TIF 13, and we'll talk about what's going on at Trinity Boulevard. You'll notice I'm not giving you a time because you do need to register. And you can do that by just emailing us at district5@fortworthtexas.gov. Lots of good information. Thanks ahead to the 2 chiefs who will be there, Chief Noakes from police and Chief Davis from the fire department. Hope to see you there if you live in District 5. Thank you.
Councilmember Williams.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few announcements. First of all, congratulations to Crowley ISD. They cut the ribbon to their new natatorium. It's a great example of the power of public-private partnerships in partnership with the Ryan Family YMCA. It's always so neat to see kids learning how to swim of all ages, and if my memory serves me correct, this facility will also be for their swim competitions as well, both at the middle and high school level. So congratulations, Crowley ISD. Our kids and families are super excited about the new pool. A few more announcements. There are a few events happening that I just wanted to broadcast. First, the Lake Como Juneteenth celebration, Food from the Soul, is June 17th at the Como Community Center. Festivities begin at 8 a.m. And they will go to 2 p.m. And then same day, later that evening, the 3rd annual Juneteenth commemoration. It's an art event at the Como Community Center from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. There's a number of other festivities as well. So amongst many, we know Miss Opally and the legend and history that she continues to pave. So, please be sure to check out all of the events across the city. And for more information, you can go to the Visit Fort Worth website for a number of Juneteenth events. That's all. Thank you.
Councilmember Hill.
Sorry, guys.
Okay, on May 26th, I was able to join the Fort Worth Water Department on a tour of Lake Worth and learn about the importance of the lake and the Fort Worth water supply, as well as that of surrounding cities. Thank you to Chris Harder. Mary Galt created the CCC to provide work for young men during the Great Depression, and this was from 1934 to 1937. The CCC did considerable work in the Fort Worth Nature Center and Refuge. 200 men arrived on May 1st in 1934 to begin work, and they continue working through December of 1937. Many of these structures and bridges were constructed by the CCC, are still in use today at the Nature Center, and I encourage you to go out and look at them and use them. And Fort Worth is actually the only existing legacy CCC chapter of the descendants in the nation. Next slide, please. This was June 5th. We had a neighborhood meeting in Crestwood to discuss the redevelopment of the Crestwood Apartments. Margaret Lemons of Fort Worth Housing Solutions and Matt Veruzhnik with Ohala Holdings came. They came to answer questions and give us more detail about the project. And thank you to Lloyd Colgrove for the Crestwood Neighborhood Association for a very informative meeting. And on June 6th, I had the pleasure of going to the TxDOT press conference announcing the grade separation at Bonds Ranch Road and US 287 through the new railroad crossing elimination program. And this was in partnership with the City of Fort Worth, BNSF Railway. TxDOT obtained federal funding for a crossing over Bonds Ranch Road near the US 287 interchange. Fort Worth received the first federal grant of $17 million on behalf of the Biden-Harris administration. This particular intersection has 36 trains that block traffic every day. This is hugely impacted traffic congestion in that area. And in addition, I wanted to thank the Fort Worth TPW staff who continue to work on the traffic issues in this area. The people in attendance were French Thompson from BNSF, Amit Bose from the Federal Railroad Administration, Brandy Hendrickson from TxDOT, and Michael Morris from the North Central Texas Council of Governments. That's all I have.
That was your chance, Rusty, to stand up and clap. I'm shocked that you didn't, right? I know, Rusty. I gave you that chance. We should clap for that one. That's a big one, yeah. There you go. Councilmember Nettles, you're up.
Thank you. The first slide here is had opportunity to go to Van St. Gwen Elementary School playground ribbon cutting. I was there with Wallace Bridges, the school board trustee for that district. Next slide, please. The YMCA Swim Safe on the Deck event. It was a great event, teaching children how to swim. We know the importance of summertime where our kids are drowning, so the YMCA is doing their fair share of teaching our young people how to swim. Next slide, please. Journey 4 Award gun violence prevention event. You know, gun violence has really struck America in Fort Worth, and so it was a great opportunity to be amongst people to figure out how we can fix our issue here in Fort Worth. Next slide. ODY's graduation had opportunity to shake hands of individuals who are going on to their next adventure in life. It was a great event, ODY. Next slide, please. Forest Fort Worth Civic Camp, they came up to City Hall, sit where you sat, came where we are, teaching the kids about civic involvement. That group of kids was very interesting. They had a lot of good questions and a lot of things to talk about. Next slide, please. These are some events that's coming up. This is going to be the Evans and Rosedale, asking for our contractors to come out to bid on subcontracting for the project noon to 2 p.m. Wednesday, June the 14th. So that's on tomorrow. So our contractors, please govern yourselves accordingly. Next slide. Soul of Sycamore Juneteenth Music Art Festival and Celebration of Freedom is going to be June the 17th through the 18th at the Sycamore Park. It was a great event last year. It's going to be a great music event this year. So please come out. You'll see parade, freedom, car show, and the list goes on and on. Next slide, please. The Opal Lee Walk vehicle registration, $35. You can look online, just type in open. I'm sure you'll get everything you need to know from there. But come out and be a part of the walk. It was great last year. All the council members come out, so we're looking forward again this year. Next slide, please. We're working on a health fair for the District 8, really for the whole community. So to come out, we're going to have Dr. Jackson doing blood pressure checks and breast cancer awareness, and then we're also going to have dentists and all sorts of things for our young people. So come out and let's get healthy. I believe that's it. Thank you.
Councilmember Beck?
All right, first up, we had our Memorial Day Carry the Load event, and I want to thank one of my newest colleagues, Councilman Larsdorf, for joining us and being so quick to jump in and be part of that. It was nice to have someone to walk with. Also, Chief Noakes, Chief Aldridge, and members of the Fort Worth Police Department, members of the Fort Worth Fire Department, who all came out in honor of not only our veterans, but those first responders that we have lost here locally. So I appreciate everybody for their participation. Next slide. We had the Fort Worth PD Family Day and Community Safety Fair. The marshals were out there, also some of the cutest pups that you've ever seen. And so if you are in the market for a dog, even if you're not in the market for a dog, you might be in the market for a dog. I'd highly recommend you all go and check to see what the city of Fort Worth has to offer. This was Sammy, who unfortunately was adopted before I could get back and change my mind. So next slide. Fort Worth ISD Vital Links program, I know I had the opportunity to speak, and I think they visited City Hall with the mayor as well. This is a really great opportunity for students at Fort Worth ISD to get exposed to different career paths. I once was a Vital Link participant myself, so it's always really great to be able to give back to those children. Next slide. There was a little kickball game this weekend. You can see there in that first picture, none other than Chief Swearingen making a run there in the Tough Stars Give Back Celebrity Kickball Game. For the record, I would like it to be known that Councilman Chris Nettles did lose.
Point of order. Point of order.
I really thank everybody who came out and participated in that as well. There were a lot of really great community leaders, staff from the city, and volunteers. Special thanks to those who participated on the team Top Notch, because we did show that we were in fact top notch. I think my muscles look bigger, but
Are y'all done down there? Okay.
we're looking. They're there. Can you blow that slide up so we can see Chris's muscles, please? Yeah, next slide. We do have Saturday, June 17th, I will be at Wedgwood Library reading to a bunch of children. So I appreciate those young and young at heart to come and join us at 10:30. Next slide. Thursday, June 22nd, we will be having a public meeting to discuss intersection improvements at Forest Park and 10th Street. So please reach out to our office if you have any additional questions about that. Next slide. June 24th will be Trinity Pride Fest from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. on Magnolia on the Green. I'd encourage you all to come out and join us. Next slide. For those of us interested in completing the Pride Activity Badge, you can click the QR code and do so here. And attending that Trinity Pride event is definitely one of your activities. So I hope to see you there. Thanks.
I think that's the conclusion of our council presentations. Thanks, Jeanette.
Next item will be 23-0382.
We have quite a few speakers on this item. Our first speaker is David Martinez, followed by Jordan Johnson.
Good evening. Usually I'm here to complain, but I'm here to encourage the city to do all they can for the arts. The reason why I believe in the arts is because I tell people, well, it's not privilege. People think art, this fine art, all that stuff, it's all privileged stuff, and we need, there's more important things. But I tell somebody, I have family members that are blind, and they wish they could see the artwork. They wish they could hear music, see plays, things like that. Those things are very important, and they're very important to our community in Southside. Lots of us, we don't have a cultural center in our neighborhood. We don't have art supplies and things like that ready available to the kids in our neighborhood. Those things need to change, and I believe the new director, Gentle, I believe in him, and I believe he's going to reach out to the community, and I also believe that there's going to be inclusiveness around the city. And I believe that we need to keep the 1300 Gendy building open, and we need to keep it under the Arts Fort Worth. We don't need to privatize this, not like what y'all did to the Botanic Gardens. This was built by the citizens that are already here. You want to make it for the people that you want to attract here, that's fine, but you got to remember, we are the taxpayers, not them. And I know they bring millions of dollars. I know I'm not ignorant to that, but I understand that we need to keep Fort Worth's culture. That's not a brand. That's not something like you can go up there and say, hey, we're going to leave it to a corporation to handle those type of things. And I don't know what y'all plan on doing exactly, but I haven't heard about the budget. So I'm wondering, is that already a done deal or not? But I'm against that. And the people that I'm with in Southside, we're against that. We are for this. Arts Fort Worth, keep it going, keep funding it. In fact, we need more funding. And I'm here to tell you, most of my community, we're poor people. They're hardworking poor people, but they pay taxes. And I'm speaking with them, and we have a consensus that we believe that the arts program should continue. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jordan Johnson, followed by Haley Green.
How are you? Hello.
Hi there.
My name is Jordan Johnson. I live at 2204 Hillcrest, and I'm here to first speak in favor of the proposal provided by the task force. I think they've done a great job, but I do have some comments as I go through it. I know it's not a Q&A, but a couple little questions. First off, I did want to say that I'm a fifth-generation native. And my great-great-great-grandfather was Joe Hogsett, who wrote the charter, who started the city. My grandfather, Joe Leidick, built Casa Manana. So I've spent quite a lot of time in those buildings, in this art center. My mom actually used to run a haunted house in the basement when I was little. So I love the building. But first, I'm here to announce, I've been a commercial real estate broker and developer for 30 years, I hate to admit. And I was also one of the founding members of now we call it the Cultural District Alliance. So I've been around the neighborhood quite a bit. And I plan on forming a dream team to respond to the RFP and make a proposal. So that would include, a to-be-determined architect, world-class architect, engineer, all of those things. So I have decided that that's going to happen. I've also been talking to Wesley, who'll come up and speak, and Ariel Friends, and some of the art community representatives about some of their concerns. And so in the process of going through the RFP, my team will be committed to keeping the arts community involved in my process every step of the way, because I know that's very important. So there be no hidden processes from my point of view. And I don't know who else is going to be competing for this, but we're going to give it our best shot. And I know my time is running out pretty quick here, but you'll also hear from a lot of other people. But I just wanted to say that in the process of doing this, I would urge that the council reviews the timeline that's proposed. It's just a little bit tight. And the questions are, we are going to have to find out, there's phase 2 environmentals, there's all kinds of studies we're going to be looking for that just take time. So I would just urge that as we go through this, the reality is the timeline's going to need to probably be pushed way out. And other than that, I do want to also commit that we will make a proposal where we will accept all of the preferred development where it says prefer selected developer incorporated. We are going to require it upon ourselves.
Thank you, Mr.
Each of
Johnson.
those items.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Our next speaker is Haley Green, followed by Benjamin Connor.
Hi there. My name is Haley, and I'm a resident of Fort Worth District 7. I've been a passionate arts worker in DFW since 2015, commuting back and forth from university in summers to get my start in the theatrical community and residing and working full-time here since 2019. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the art scene in Fort Worth came to a screeching halt, as most things did. Since the world has opened back up, we have seen time and time again that art and places of artistic expression are more important than ever. In a time where society is in a constant state of revealing the things that separate us from one another, art and spaces of artistic expression are examples of what can unite all of us together. The Fort Worth Arts Center provides valuable resources for new and emerging artists to begin to make their way into the rich artistic landscape of our city. But most importantly, Arts Fort Worth creates unprecedented paths for access to marginalized groups of artists, specifically to artists of color, who historically have been gatekept from opportunities and careers in the arts. I remember what it was like to be given the opportunity to create art for the first time, and everyone who craves that feeling deserves to be able to taste it. And that chance is afforded to individuals every year by Arts Fort Worth and the other residencies and programs that call 1300 Gendy Street home. I urge council members to ensure that 1300 Gendy Street remains a community arts center so that many more years of creators have the opportunity to find their places in our community here in Fort Worth and to continue to grow Fort Worth into a city where art is valued, elevated, and made accessible to everyone who wishes to create it. Thank you.
Benjamin Connor, followed by Jasmine Walthall Deremy. Yep, sorry, we're going to skip that one. Okay. So Benjamin Connor, and then Ames Fender is next. Sorry.
I'm Benjamin Connor. I live in Northwest Side, District 2. I have a professional background in finance and economics. I'm also an artist and writer, so I empathize with the concerns of both the council and arts community. We all have the same goal of being a hub for world-class art, we all have the same goal of being a hub for world-class artists and artifacts. As such, the Community Arts Center needs to have the funding for permanent spaces to facilitate artists, artifacts, and performances. But the city should require that there be professionals who can educate artists and viewers about the cultural and personal significance of the art that is housed there. The Arts Center needs leaders and teachers who inspire local artists, viewers, and patrons with the necessary aesthetic prowess to be a world-class art space. I would hate to see political motivations that co-opt and undermine the purpose of aesthetics in our culture. The philosophy of aesthetics is the foundation of all meaningful art. The Community Arts Center has skilled artists who have knowledge and experienced administrators who have understanding. But how many of them have something more than that? How many of them have the appropriate education to generate creative wisdom that can transform somebody's worldview? By using something akin to the Socratic method, artists and viewers can emotionally and philosophically interrogate an artifact or performance in order to obtain the prophetic significance locked inside the art. With that updated understanding, one begins to apply that insight and methodology to themselves and their lives. It's an education on how one can relate a sensation to an aesthetic form, and from there, they explore new aesthetic forms and unlock new sensations and a deeper self-realization. That is world-class art space. The development of taste is the expansion of one's own identity, which helps develop character. And if one has a rich character, just how much more impactful will they be in their spheres of influence? Focusing on how to sell art isn't just what makes the city known as a hub of world-class art. It's the way we educate people about art, how emotional intelligence unlocks oneself, and how being a greater degree of oneself transforms our city at a grassroots level. This is not the return on investment that taxpayers and leaders expect, a greater degree of well-being for the whole community. The functional education that libraries provide is no different from the emotional education that the arts provide. Please don't forget, the sole purpose of a regime, a constitution, its leaders, is to ensure that and increase the safety and well-being of the citizens. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ames Fender, followed by Wesley Kirk.
Hello, my name is Ames Fender. I reside at 311 Bryant Avenue, Fort Worth, and my office is at 201 South Calhoun. There has been a Fender involved with the arts in this town since my grandfather was in a barbershop quartet back in the 19-teens, including my mother's 50 years on the board of the Fort Worth Symphony. And there was my brother in a band that opened for Sly and the Family Stone and Will Rogers back in the 60s. So in some way or form, a Fender's been involved. And for the last over 50 years, 1300 Gendy has been at the center of that development of the arts in this town. I can remember as a child being dragged to meetings that my mom would go to with the symphony in that building. And I think that I also have a unique perspective, having been the architect for ADA conversions, renovations when the Modern Art Museum was still in there, and then working with the Scott Foundation for the last serious renovation that occurred to the Scott Theater with the rigging, lighting, seating, and various finishes. So I understand the complexities of that building. I understand the complexity of financing in the arts and the difficult challenge facing everybody here. I do believe most of that building can be preserved and saved in whatever fashion, whoever funds it or whatever developer does it. I think because of the financing and everything involved, I fully support the idea of the property being redeveloped, so long as it is strictly placed in there the requirement that it be for arts organization and that it be in an incubator and accessible and for all diverse groups in the city of Fort Worth, because it needs to be maintained as that for the city, whoever is managing it. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Wesley Kirk, followed by Sean McGuire.
My name is Wesley Kirk. I live in District 7. I'm a photographer, a filmmaker, an arts organizer. The Fort Worth Community Arts Center is a foundational cornerstone of the entire creative community, not just in Fort Worth, but throughout North Texas. You'd be hard-pressed to find an artist or arts organization in town who hasn't in some form or fashion been impacted by the Arts Center. I'm here to ask you for a continuance in approving this recommendation, partly because y'all have not had enough time to learn about the pivotal role that the Arts Center plays in the city, partly because if you push ahead with what even Maddie Parker called an aggressive timeline, you risk not only missing a golden opportunity for this building to truly live up to its highest and best use, but you also risk losing one of the most vital resources the city has. I've been to many of the task force meetings and witnessed lots of miscommunication and a lack of forethought on the impact of the recommendation. Because it only prefers that the things that the community loves remain, it creates a possibility that we lose everything for the simple fact that it's not required. I think the responsible thing to do is to listen to what the community wants and needs, to understand what the full function of the building could be, to work with the tenants who are already working miracles in the building, to learn how the city can better support them, potentially with a new building better designed to fully fit the community's needs, then talk to developers to see how we can make that happen. No matter what happens at 1300 Gendy Street, now or in the future, I urge you to require that it remain a community arts center with galleries and theaters. The Fort Worth Community Arts Center acts as a community showcase to display the talent, skill, and creativity that Fort Worth has to offer. It is a place that that ties the community together where we can tell our stories. It is one of the few accessible, equitable, and inclusive art spaces in Fort Worth. Without it, there will be too few art spaces here, and artists might have to move to other cities where the arts are better supported. Any city of our size has at least 4 community art spaces, and they are almost always owned and maintained by the city, treated the same way as you would a library or a community center. It's time for Fort Worth to step up and take a more active role in supporting the arts, the very same arts that make this city such a wonderful place to live and visit. The task force says they want to create a world-class cultural hub, but it is already a cultural hub with world-class art, and Fort Worth deserves a world-class building to reflect that by expanding upon what is already happening there. No one here wants to lose what we already have. This is an opportunity for you as City Council to listen to the community, to do the responsible thing and do the right thing. I ask you to either issue a continuance so that we can take time to get this right, or require that it remain a community arts center so that we can help the arts flourish in the city of Fort Worth. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Sean McGuire, followed by Joe A. Brown.
Hello, my name is Sean McGuire, and I'm a local artist in the community. I'm here today to ask that you please make the galleries and theater spaces not preferred but required in the redevelopment of 1300 Gendy. The first time I visited the Fort Worth Community Arts Center was on a field trip in high school. We went to the Modern, the Kimball, the Amon Carter, and the Fort Worth Community Arts Center because it was right there. We didn't even have to get back on the bus. In contrast, when we would go to Dallas, we would go to the DMA and the Nasher, but we never went to one of the Dallas Community Arts Centers. Why? They're nowhere nearby the museums. I myself worked in museums for over 6 years, and the question you get asked the most is, how do I get my art in the museum? Which is not an easy question to answer. Most artists don't start off showing in museums. They start off showing in galleries. Which galleries specifically? Community art galleries. If you are in any of the major art museums in Fort Worth, you are at most 4 blocks away from the Fort Worth Community Arts Center. So if someone asks, how do I show my work in a museum? You can start off an actual trajectory for them by just saying, oh, down the street, that's where you get your start. Additionally, because of this close proximity to the museums, our local artwork also has a bigger platform for reaching wider audiences, bringing attention to the strength of the art coming out of the actual community. Without these galleries and theater spaces in the cultural district, it'll just emphasize how little the city cares about local artists by essentially saying, our local art isn't good enough to be in the cultural district. Beyond just the location of the Community Arts Center, Arts Fort Worth has supported so many local artists and allowed them to grow in their artistic careers by giving them places to show and sell their work, from hosting workshops to help you with the business side of art, to critique nights, and by just giving us space to get our voices out there. I don't know a single artist in North Texas who hasn't in some way positively benefited from the Fort Worth Community Arts Center and the community surrounding it. I'm so saddened that the future of such a wonderful space is even a topic of conversation. So please, make gallery spaces and theater spaces a non-negotiable in the redevelopment of 1300 Gendy Street. Thank you.
Joe Brown, followed by Tiffany Costello.
Hello, I'm Joe Allen Brown. I live in District 11 on the Trinity East Side. I am professor of theater and chair of theater at Texas Wesleyan University, where we finally had a winning football team this year. Yeah. There have been such eloquent speeches, I think Wesley especially, talking about the need for this space to continue to be for arts, incubators, galleries, theater, and other various performances. Currently, right now, Kids Who Care is in there, Stolen Shakespeare is in there, and what is known as the Scott Theater is rented by many of the private high schools in the area. Theater TCU uses it, Texas Wesleyan uses it. My concern in looking at all this is that that theater is the only theater that was designed by Donald Onsleger, who was a 1950s Broadway designer who went on to be the chair of design at Yale. It is a significant architectural space in the same way that Casa's geodesic dome, designed by Buckminster Fuller, is a significant space in the cultural district. It's also one of the few theaters that is a mid-sized theater. There are no small theaters here. We have Bass, we have Will Rogers, we do not have other spaces. We have the wonderful I.M. Terrell space that, thank you Fort Worth for finally doing a decent theater space for the teachers of the Fort Worth ISD. But we need a smaller space. I'm also vice president of the board at Jubilee Theater, which is also very interested in using it as well for their larger shows. It's an incredible space. We do not have a mid-sized theater there. Yes, it needs to be updated, but we need opportunities for public theaters that could be used that are not huge barns like Will Rogers or even some of our high school theater spaces. But the value there within the history of that space. So whatever you all are looking at doing, please keep it a community arts center, but please continue to look at keeping that particular space within there something that is a treasure for Fort Worth. That's it.
Our next speaker is Tiffany Costello.
Hi, I'm Tiffany Costello. I'm from District 9. I live in near Southside. I'm a musician and an event producer and a photographer and all things creative, and I also have a numbers brain, so I can speak to both sides of this situation. I recently moved back to Fort Worth after being gone for 8 years. During those 8 years, I lived in Denver, Seattle, and New York City, all amazing creative hubs for the arts. Vibrant cities for artists because of that support and funding available. Texas currently ranks 42nd in the country for funding the arts, and Fort Worth has the chance to move that needle, which will only amplify the vibrancy of our creative community and the voice of it, and draw other people to this community. The creative economy is also a profitable sector. With budget-minded events, programming of exhibits, and more, 1300 Gendy can be a destination place for people in and around DFW and from across Texas as well as the country. I'm thinking Marfa, Texas. It's a tiny town. Everyone knows where Marfa is, and it's creative. I came back to Fort Worth to return not only because my family's here, my friends are here, but also to the creative community that exists and has existed here for so long. From independently owned record studios, dance studios, very unique venues, bars, museums, and more, Fort Worth is an incubator for artists and creativity and supports local businesses. And it is creatively accessible here. Access is incredibly important, not only to support the artists, but to get them started, as it's been mentioned previously. Okay. And to continue that access, support and preservation are essential. 1300 Gendy is creatively accessible to the community, and we need to continue to support the community with support to these spaces. One of the things about the other cities I've lived in is that those community gathering spaces are not in short supply. They're everywhere. They're often unique, historic buildings which create a one-of-a-kind atmosphere and for the experience of the artists and the patrons. These venues and spaces are destinations because of the story they can tell and the historical significance behind them and the atmosphere they can create. 1300 Gendy is and continue to be a destination. Finally, the creative economy is robust in Texas. It creates 1 in 15 jobs, generates $380 million in tax revenue, $50.1 billion in GDP, $6.1 billion in revenue for Texas. $26 million in repairs would see an ROI due to the local economy ready to attend and to the vibrancy of that stream of revenue already existing in Texas. With so many eyes on Fort Worth on this current situation, there's a unique opportunity to make a positive impact on the artist community and elevate Fort Worth as a city that supports the arts. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Layla Razi, and she has to correct me on probably how I butchered her name, followed by Denise Salerno.
Don't worry, it's pretty uncommon to pronounce it correctly. So my name is Lala Razai.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm the owner of South Barbershop in District 9 South Main Village. It's just me and a fellow barber, George, 2 chairs and a bunch of wall art. I've been in operation for 4 years, and from day one, I've hosted artists to display their art in my shop each month. I've had about 40 different artists in total. I also participate in the third Thursday art crawl in the near South Side. If you know about that, you totally go. It's really fun. You just go from shop to shop. People that have art in their businesses, you can visit, and they usually have special events going on that night. Between the art walk, my clients, the neighbors, art enthusiasts that visit, I can sing the praises of the impact that art has had on my business. It has since become a pillar of my shop and its culture. I'm constantly surprised by how excited clients get at seeing art from new artists on the wall each month. I absolutely love it. All that to say, I am doing what I can to adamantly support and promote local artists in an effort to enrich the culture of a rapidly growing city. Without these easily accessible exhibits, the heart of a cultural district beats too softly to really experience the richness of the people who live and work at its borders. What I've gleaned from coordinating this little art gallery in the smallest barbershop in town, and what I consistently hear from artists, is that there is a huge shortage of affordable, accessible spaces for the sheer number of artists we have in Fort Worth. We're so lucky to call residents here. Art groups have been vocal about it and have had to be extremely creative with scouting locations for exhibitions. It has fallen on the shoulders of businesses to nurture the artists in the city, and we happily participate. But it isn't enough for these truly talented and bright artists to hope for a chance to display their art in a 5x8 piece of plywood in my shop, or for a group of renegade artists to start their own art collective. Even if more businesses had their own art walls, it wouldn't be enough to replace what Arts Fort Worth already offers at the Fort Worth Community Arts Center. Private solutions can't solve a public problem. Obviously, Fort Worth is rapidly growing. This little cow town is now a cow city. As such, we should do what the city residents and visitors, we would do the city's residents and visitors a disservice by failing to secure accessible spaces for artists and performers to display and celebrate their work without the exorbitant costs and uncertainty easily navigated by well-established artists. Now is the time to decide what kind of city we want to be. As a business owner, there is a greater appeal in a city that cultivates an exciting, creative culture. If we want to remain a competitive city, we must maintain that Fort Worth Community Arts Center as a space for artists and for the people of Fort Worth. We must ensure that the Community Arts Center hosts artists in galleries and performers in theaters. The amazing work happening in the Fort Worth Community Arts Center to give the innumerable talented artists a platform to display their work and expand their careers must continue. I'm asking you to require that no matter what happens to 1300 Gendy Street, that it remain a community arts center. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Denise Salerno, followed by Jerry Tracy.
Hi, I did enjoy the team here tonight. Fort Worth going to Italy.
That's great. Yes.
My name is Denise Salerno. I'm a poet. The importance of creative arts, music, song, movies, books, poetry, dance, expression of language. We communicate with one another, not only through our minds and bodies, but through our soul of well-being. It's through our minds and bodies we speak. Human race, filled with passion, medicine, law, business, engineering. These are noble pursuits and necessary to sustain life. But poetry, beauty, romance, love, these are what we stay alive for. Telling stories, preserving our history is what we learn from now and future generations. Bringing resources, education, economics, benefits.
Ms. Salerno, I'm going to pause your time. I think we've got disruption from a call or something coming in. Okay. She was at 1:47. Please continue, Ms. Salerno.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you.
No problem. And enjoyment to not only in our community, but all over the world. This is the core and strength of a foundation. Storytelling, but not limited, the importance of creative arts. Performances thereof function to entertain as well to educate, to understand the impact on all of us. I encourage everyone to explore the poets of Fort Worth, the remembrance of the poets that brought poetry to our community. I'm placing a marker in Fort Worth. And the poets, the Fort Worth Poet Society still remains in our community. Welcome strangers warmly in a world of need, love, and peace.
That was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Jerry Tracy, followed by Bernardo Vallerino.
Good evening, Mayor Parker and council members. It is really hard to follow a poet, and I know it. So on that, I am representing Historic Fort Worth tonight, a 501c3 charity, a preservation organization that has been around since 1969 with, and right as of today, 36 board members, and any one of them would have loved to have served on your task force, but no one was invited. So just tuck that away for next time. These comments also represent our board chairman, Kara Kinnemer, who is a construction attorney. She's out of the country and sent back additional comments. The task force recommends a world-class building, and the Fort Worth Community Arts Center has a distinguished provenance. Herbert Baer, an Austrian-trained architect, is known as the curator of aesthetics, and he designed phase 1 of the building in 1954. For over 30 years, he was the lead architect to design a little village called Aspen that took off. In 1966, the Scots Theater was added and designed by Cornell-educated architect Joseph R. Pellick of Fort Worth and Harvard's Donald Owenslager of New York City. Lastly, in 1974, the final addition to the Arts Center was designed by O'Neill Ford and Associates of San Antonio, an architect known as the grandfather of Texas modernism. This is a building that can generate restoration tax credits. Within specific ownership requirements, the state of Texas' restoration tax credit program generates 25% on each dollar spent for improvements on a state or nationally designated building. This plan would allow a phased-in approach rather than funding all the projects at once like new construction. The tax credits would reduce the $30 million price tag to $22.5 million off the top. Design, demolition, and construction costs for a new building will cost much more than restoring the Arts Center. It is misleading to announce that the restoration costs are excessive because no one knows what the new building would cost. This is a building with deferred maintenance that's gone on for years. The charities that work at the Community Arts Center cannot fund these expenses, especially for a building they do not own. Scraping the building will severely interrupt the business of the arts group renting the building. A phased-in restoration plan would cause the least amount of disruption for the arts groups that use the building. A thriving arts environment continuously innovates and grows and supports a vibrant tourism industry. Cultural museums and historic preservation
Thank you, Ms. Tracy.
support
Sorry, your time's
economic
expired.
development.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Our next speaker is Bernardo Valerino, followed by Henry Willis.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Bernardo Vallarino. I live at 7417 Diamond Springs, Ontario. Jared is my council member. And it's great to see a lot of people I recognize. So Carlos, Michael, David, it's great to be here. It feels like family. And I want to talk on behalf of the Gendy issue that we have here today. One of the things that I want to point out as an artist, but also as a real estate agent with 20 years of experience in commercial residential real estate, is that it looks like we have dropped the ball as a city with our own assets. The amount of disrepair that this building has had for so many years, to me, it's wrong. And as an artist, I feel like I've been double screwed, not only as a taxpayer, but also an artist. So just to keep that in mind. The other thing I want to point out is I have taught art as well, graduate and postgraduate levels. And here in Fort Worth, one of the things that people ask me is, similar question earlier, is like, what do I do to grow as an artist and to get to museums and further ahead in my career? And normally the answer is you need to find opportunities. Right? So if, let's say, for example, that Jared or Michael, one of your kids wanted to go to school and have an arts career, that's what I will tell them, right? Start with the Community Arts Center. But if the Community Arts Center does not exist as it exists right now, your kids will have to go to a different city in order to have those opportunities, because we only have 1 or 2 cultural centers locally that gives those kind of opportunities. That would be embarrassing if I was in your seat. Right? To have them to go somewhere else. So just having the requirement in the current verbiage that we have would be important, right? So to increase it from into a requirement, so I don't lose time. And last but not least, the other thing that I wanted to point out is just to be careful about creating a public-private partnership when it comes down to the arts. In my case, I make artwork that is social commentary. I make artwork that makes comments on religion. Currently, I'm making artwork that it comments on guns. So I have, torsos that have a gun instead of male genitalia, right? And, a lot of private entities may not like that kind of artwork being shown, right? It works well for, the zoo, because animals are not politic per se, right? Or for plants. For those kind of stuff, it works. But when it comes to the arts, we have to be very, very careful who has a say-so, because our First Amendment as artists can be really easily be put aside just because of those elements. So once again, make sure that we're making the right decisions with the arts, our future, and our city. Thank you.
Followed by Ariel Davis.
Esteemed councilors and Mayor Parker, good evening. My name is Doyle Henry Willis III, and I have lived my entire life at 2300 Primrose Avenue in Oakhurst in District 11. I'm here today to speak against the adoption of this resolution. I first came to 1300 Gendy Street as a child of 7 or 8 to attend art camp at what was then the original Modern Art Museum. I have been part of field trips that have gone to the Scott Theater over many years, and recently I was invited there by Arts Fort Worth to read my poetry as part of as part of an initiative which encouraged local poets to write about pieces made by Fort Worth artists. So to say that this building has played an important part in my life would be an incredible understatement. Unfortunately, this building has suffered. In Fort Worth, we have got an awful lot of hotels, motels, restaurants, bars, and other kind of businesses. This is a good and necessary thing, as I have recently read that we are on track to reach 1 million residents and more in the next brief span of years. Those people are going to need places to work and live, places to buy groceries, and places to park their cars, but they're also going to need something more than that. They are going to need a place for art. Fort Worth has some of the finest art museums in the world. I know that because I grew up here. Not long ago, 1300 Gendy Street stood proudly as one of them. How fortunate we are then to have it, and this historic building, which it is, as our Fort Worth art space. What is required is not development or redevelopment, but rather preservation and support, your support. I will end my entreaty to you with some questions. When you're in your car, returning home at the end of a long day of hearing from people like me, have you ever listened to music? When you get home, do you have a painting or prints on the walls? Have you been to a movie theater recently, or maybe a play? Well, wouldn't you prefer that that music and that painting and those plays and that movie be Fort Worth art by Fort Worth artists? I know I would. In that spirit, I urge you not to approve this resolution for redevelopment and instead to reevaluate this situation and give it the necessary time, attention, and support to preserving 1300 Gendy Street so that Fort Worth art and Fort Worth artists may yet have their proper place in this, our great city. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Davis will be followed by Claire Kennedy.
Hello, Mayor Parker and council members. I would like to start by thanking you for hearing so many of us today, and to the task force who has put so much work in on this project. My name is Ariel Davis. I'm a resident of District 7, and I'm an artist and arts professional. And I am against the recommendation with its current language, and it is a simple fix. The Fort Worth Community Arts Center holds a dear place in my heart. I first showed my work there at 17 years old and was awarded a prize for my work by Harry Tennyson. Since then, it has served me and many of my peers as an important place to show our artwork in a professional public setting. It is a wonderful space for discovery. I currently serve voluntarily on the exhibition advisory panel for the Fort Worth Community Arts Center, and I am proud of the exhibitions that have been displayed as a result of the panel's hard work each year. How many of you on the council and the citizens of Fort Worth believe that local artists are showing regularly at the Modern, Kimball, or Amon Carter? Aside from some community programming at the Carter and long-established artists in permanent collections, this perception is wrong. You won't find our works displayed in exhibitions in these great museums yet. To get to that level, artists, including the young, emerging, and mid-career, need spaces to share their work in person and with the public. Taking away this important show space is like taking out a rung in a ladder, making it even more difficult to find pathways into museum spaces as artists progress in their careers. After watching the video from the June 6th Task Force recommendation presentation, it is clear that the task force sees the cultural value of the services provided in the 1300 Gendy building. However, from the artist's perspective, many of us are alarmed by and concerned with the accelerated timeline of change, which is leaving many scared and confused, especially when that change does not guarantee that there will be a space for them in the form of galleries and a theater at the end of the process. But because change seems inevitable in this circumstance, I ask you to simply replace the word prefer in the recommendation to required. Make it a requirement that the redevelopment proposals must include ample and world-class space for the next generation of artists to grow in. And I ask you to invest in and nurture our talent that is here, as well as attract artists to Fort Worth. We have an opportunity to make Fort Worth a great leader in this regard for years to come. And you have an opportunity for that to be a part of your legacy as Fort Worth leaders. Don't waste it. Let us continue to build on our rich history as a city that loves and supports art. Guarantee with the requirement that there will be an exhibition space for us artists to call home in the future. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Claire Kennedy, followed by Mary Anchoa.
Hello. My name is Claire Kennedy, and I live in Council District 3, represented by Councilmember Michael Crane. I'm proud to say that I'm currently the emerging artist in residence at Arts Fort Worth, which entails being offered a studio space for 1 year, located on the second floor overlooking the front entrance of the building. I actually grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio, moving to North Texas in 2019 for my MFA program at UNT. I graduated last year and have since been working as an adjunct professor at various art programs at DFW universities. As many artists and educators know, this is not always the most stable or reliable career path. Classes can be hard to come by, and enrollment shifts every semester. As a working and exhibiting artist, studio spaces are extremely hard to come by in Fort Worth. I would not be here in this wonderful city I now call home if not for the opportunities offered to me by Arts Fort Worth. My first solo exhibition out of grad school was at Arts Fort Worth, which gave me the visibility to show with galleries in Dallas and beyond. Not only has Arts Fort Worth offered me multiple opportunities to show work in a state where I otherwise wouldn't have a foot in the door, but they've also given me the space and funds to continue creating art and contributing to this vibrant community. In a city 1,000 miles away from my hometown, a space like Arts Fort Worth is not only beneficial but pivotal in my relationship building in the arts and ability to stay in Fort Worth and continue making art. This is true for myself and so many other friends and colleagues who have been offered opportunities because of the doors opened by Arts Fort Worth. All of this is made possible by the galleries, studio spaces, and offices available at 1300 Gendy Street. When I moved to Texas, I dreamed of finding a rich and supportive art community where I could plant my roots. I'm lucky enough to say that I found that through grad school and my time at the Fort Worth Community Arts Center. The arts deserve funding. People moving to Texas deserve opportunities to show their work. Please keep 1300 Gendy Street a free and accessible arts center for the deserving residents of Fort Worth. As Jenna Grace said in her speech to the task force on March 30th, if this goes, where do we go? Thanks so much.
Our next speaker is actually Chad Wynn. Chad will be followed by Carol Aceto.
Hi, thank you for your time. I'm going to keep this brief. I didn't have anything prepared. I moved here from Dallas about 5 years ago, and I love this city. I've recently come to see how Arts Fort Worth and the community center has impacted this community, and I think it should stay as it is. It should stay under Arts Fort Worth. I think we need a pillar of this sort in this community. it's going to be beneficial for us. Like I said, I don't have much prepared here, but I wish that you would just make this a requirement to have the theaters and the galleries in there above anything else. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Nguyen. Our next speaker is Carol Aceto, followed by Matt Sachs.
Hello. My name is Carol Aceto. I am a small business owner. I have had a business here for 17 years. I'm from District 7. Let me put my glasses on. My business, I am an industrial designer. I have a consultant business, and I also am a traditional artist. Ditto to what everybody else has said here. I'm not going to repeat it, so I'm just going to tell you my testimony. Due to the SOCAR program at Fort Worth Community Arts Center, I was able to have my first exhibit. I and another artist, neither of us had representation. We both had our very first exhibit in Gallery 1 at the Fort Worth Community Arts Center. It's a beautiful space. You feel like you can bring people there and be proud. You can take pictures of your exhibits, and it's such a beautiful space. It looks like a professional exhibit. And part of that plays into the unique part of it. Sometimes these types of spaces are relinquished to basements with paneling and, just some awful spaces that, concrete walls and things that don't really show off your art and bad lighting. So after we had our show there, we had a gallery owner come, and we signed our contract for representation, and they took every single painting, every single piece of art that we had in that exhibit. And it was our first gallery representation also. So I had my first solo show the following year. At that show, it was during the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo, and it was a Western exhibit. And I had picked up 2 more galleries, and every single piece of that art went into a gallery. And all of those paintings have been sold with the exception of 2. So I just want to say it's the only place I know where emerging artists can apply to have an exhibit all on their own without having someone else necessarily tell them. You do have to apply, and they do look at your artwork and determine, but I don't know of any other place in the country that does that. I'd also like to say I'd like for the building to be preserved. It is in itself is a piece of art. It's a beautiful piece of mid-century architecture. The architect is an artist. I would like to see it preserved if possible. And if you do have to tear it down, please build it back better. Give us more space, more theaters, more gallery space. That's it.
Thank you. Matt Sachs will be followed by Sophia Del Rio.
Good evening. My name is Matt Sachs. I live at 4621 El Campo. Some friends of mine and I, we run a local art gallery out of that space. It's called the Grackle Art Gallery. And I'm here to speak in favor of the Fort Worth Community Arts Center, the building that it's in, and everything that that place does. Historical significance, cultural significance, and all the great things that the Fort Worth Community Arts Center does for everyone in this community, up-and-coming artists, up-and-coming musicians, theater performers, you name it. It is vitally important that this place be preserved physically and that it be preserved for the entire community so that the entire arts community can grow and be significant for everyone. Thank you.
Sophia Del Rio, followed by Debbie Whelan.
Sophia Del Rio, Masters of Science, Northwestern University, Neuroscience PhD candidate, all but dissertation neuroscience. District 6, Dr. Jared Williams is my representative here. Dr. Williams, from one whip-smart Texan to another, I think you should know what's at stake here. Redevelopment of 1300 Gendy Street is a freedom of speech issue. What has been the driver of American innovation? Free speech and the right to peacefully assemble. The Community Arts Center in Fort Worth is the only place in North Texas where Texans can gather for free and be immersed in 7 galleries of art, as well as theater, dance, etc. Many nonprofits that serve the community are also housed here. Dr. Williams, this is our first time meeting. I have never seen you at the Community Arts Center. Let me tell you right now, on view is Julie Liebersat from Denton, curator and artist Maritza Batista from Laredo, and Lillian Young, a native Texan now residing in Brooklyn, New York, as well as 80 other artists right now. This Fort Worth-based Community Arts Center serves all of Texas because it is unique and free. This place houses the ability to assemble and speak. It is a grassroots hub of innovation and conversation. This very American place of innovation is being redeveloped. We are here to discuss the redevelopment. It's been made clear to me that a for-profit model is being pushed forward. I caution you against a for-profit model. Ticket prices censor who has access. In fact, the paid parking around the area has prevented community members from attending. Pricing people out of access to free speech is censorship. This model closes the doors to the community it serves. It will become a tourist attraction. Fort Worth already has world-class museums. We need to serve the whole community, not just the bankers and the developers like Mr. Jordan Johnson and the rich. I introduce myself with my scientific credentials intentionally. You see, I am a local artist. Artists are seen as being ditzy and disorganized. I'd like to tell you that is a stereotype that historically has been used to quiet the voice of thinkers and innovators. I will not be quiet. I also introduce myself with my neuroscience background to tell you this. Fort Worth is like a living animal. If you cut out the thinking portion of the brain, the imaginative portion of the brain, the language centers, and the planning portion of the brain in surgery, the animal will keep living. It will be a breathing, drooling, non-responsive sack of flesh. It will never be able to care for itself again. If you redevelop the Community Arts Center
Thank you,
with
Sophia.
a for-profit
Your
model,
time's
you
expired.
lobotomize
Thank
Fort
you.
Worth.
Our next speaker is Debbie Whelan, followed by Quentin McGowan.
Good evening. My name's Debbie Whelan. I've lived in District 3 for about 50 years now, and I have been a patron of the Fort Worth Community Arts Center for many years. I was introduced to it by a locally educated, MFA educated artist who really opened my eyes to what's possible out there. And I really just want to say that if we don't have a place like the Community Arts Center for our new and emerging artists, where are they going to go? They have to have a place, and I would urge you to consider in the redevelopment plans that it's required that we have that Community Arts Center there. Because if we just wait 5 years to build another one, what's going to happen to those artists in that time frame? I have art from local artists hanging all over my walls at home, and I'm very proud of it. And I think everyone has been very eloquent tonight, and you certainly have had a lot of comments in support of keeping it a requirement that the Community Arts Center be in the new redevelopment. And that's pretty much what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Quentin McGowan, and then we're going to shift to some calls that we have on the agenda.
Mayor Parker, members of council, Manager Cook. It's been remarkable listening to the voices of these emerging artists and a new generation of artists. I'm just another multi-generational old guy who is lucky to live in both districts 9 and 7. But I'm here to ask you tonight to continue consideration on the recommendation from the 1300 Gendy Task Force. I applaud the work of the task force and firmly believe that they approached a difficult situation with honesty and integrity, but were not allowed the time nor given sufficient information to result in a recommendation that we now risk destroying an existing world-class cultural hub with known needs and attendant costs for the nebulous prospect of building another with unknown costs, unseen design, and unforeseeable public acceptance. It was the Fort Worth Arts Center, as the Community Arts Center was then known, that brought international recognition to Fort Worth. We've already heard some of the remarkable architects who were included in this complex. I've included a little bit more of that information in expanded remarks for you. I urge you to reject the recommendation that's on the table. At the very least, continue consideration of the task force report to allow for a fully developed and better informed public process to determine the fate of this most public facility. The public had a single opportunity to advocate for the complex, and last-minute changes to the speaking rules further limited meaningful input from a capacity audience that night. Now is not the time to make a precipitous decision based on a deliberately short study that supports a result the city has pursued since it acquired stewardship of the complex from the Art Association nearly 20 years ago. The task force recommendation is an unsurprising result following decades of deferred maintenance and the doomed from the start concept to shift the city's responsibility for maintenance onto the shoulders of tenant managers the city knew could never fulfill impossible obligations. We are told now that the complex is old, is too expensive to repair, so let's tear it down and see what happens. Those same words were spoken over the years about the Northside Coliseum, the Will Rogers Memorial Complex, and the Tarrant County Courthouse, and dozens of other architectural treasures that make Fort Worth the great city it is. We are now confronting a self-fulfilling prophecy reflected in the public comments contained in the report. Start with an irreplaceable complex crafted by some of the world's best designers, then don't maintain it, don't promote it, choke access to it by charging excessive and economically discriminatory parking fees, and then determine that it can't serve its purpose and open the doors to redeveloping scarce public land. Now is not the time to reward neglect. Please take time. Let's just take a step back, do this right. We want a world-class center. We need a world-class effort, and I know Fort Worth is capable of doing it. Thank you all.
Our first caller is Jasmine Walthall-Deremy.
Mayor, we have not been able to reach her.
Christina Snoke, Licencia Snoke.
Christina? Christina?
I'm here.
Yes, please go
Dear
ahead.
City Council, yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you,
Dear City
Christina.
Council, you have heard me speak in recent weeks concerning issues within my community of Rosemont and the collective South Side. But today I'm here to speak on another matter. I would like to speak on the many positive experiences I've had at Arts Fort Worth. Years ago, I had the privilege of attending a gallery opening of a friend of mine. As a young woman at this time, this experience was like none other I had had before, complete with food and beverages and communion and celebration of the art that this friend had to offer our community. Though this may seem like a regular event to many, for me it was a first, and something to that point I had only seen in movies. You see, up until that moment, I did not realize those types of experiences were available to people like us, both the artists and those who enjoy their art. I thought only certain people that ran in wealthier social circles and with connections to high-end galleries could have experiences like this. My second memorable experience with Arts Fort Worth was years later when I was a teacher at Morningside Elementary. One of my students invited me to their performance with Kids Who Care, I watched as this very talented and vivacious student of mine sometimes struggled to feel like he fit in at school. But when I watched him perform for Kids Who Care, I watched him come alive as his full self on that stage, and I watched as his fellow Kids Who Care cast members embraced him with love and full acceptance. I know for a fact that Kids Who Care made a huge impact on his life. Not to mention that Scott Theater is just such an amazing and unique theater that just made the experience that much better. My latest experience with Arts Fort Worth in Scott Theater was my niece's recent dance competition with her dance studio, Motivation Dance, which, by the way, is the absolute most inclusive dance studio in DFW and the only one of its kind. Everything about the Scott Theater enhanced the experience of watching this dance competition, and I want to make sure that the Scott Theater remains a place where organizations like Motivation Dance and Kids Who Care can continue to showcase the talent of all children, no matter their cultural, ethnic, or economic background. I would also like to say that in preserving community arts in Fort Worth, you are making sure that the most marginalized people of our community has the ability to showcase their art, express the challenges their communities face through art, and have a real shot at making their career as artists. Please preserve the unique and diverse nature of Fort Worth. Remember, we are not Dallas. Please do not widen the space between the have and the have-nots by replacing this community art space with some high-end gallery and only make arts accessible to a select few. Please keep the Scott Theater and the galleries at this location intact so that it continues as a community art space and cultural landmark in Fort Worth. Thank you.
Our next caller is it Mary Anchua?
Mayor, we have not been able to reach Mary or Keisha.
Okay. Kat Stupka?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
My name is Kat Stupka, and I am a 32-year and second-generation resident of Fort Worth, Texas, District 3. My family now has 3 generations that are connected passionately to and have benefited positively from the Fort Worth Community Arts Center at 1300 Gendy. I went to every gallery night in the Fort Worth Community Arts Center with my grandmother, Betty Fay, a prominent local artist, from about age 6 until she could no longer walk to make it through. Her favorite thing was getting to show her work in that building over the years. She told me repeatedly through my life and stated that it was because of the diverse artists she got to show with and the access it provided to the community, not only to view the work, but be a part of it. She could have shown her paintings anywhere in the city and was frequently asked to, but she always chose the Fort Worth Community Arts Center because of what it gave to the community. She is 96 and can't be here, but I know she would speak emphatically about preserving it. I saw my first Kids Who Care play at the Scott Theater on an elementary school field trip, and I fell in love with the stage. I pursued theater as an anchor of my middle, high school, and college years. Because of one experience in that space, I spent 15 years on stage acting, running lights, sound, building and painting award-winning sets for multiple schools in Fort Worth. One experience in that space began not only the foundation of friendships I still hold today, but the fundamentals of who I am as an artist and a person, and it all started at 1300 Gendy Street. When I was a single mom with a 5-year-old who desperately wanted to be on stage, the only reason that I was able to let them attend theater camp and classes was because of resources and scholarships provided to me through Kids Who Care. That 5-year-old is almost 14 and is in the building at 1300 Gendy, literally as we stand here speaking, learning from former Fort Worth Community Arts Center kids turned Broadway performers at Kids Who Care Camp. We are privileged to not need those scholarships anymore, but without that space and the ability that it allowed for Kids Who Care to support us when we did, I don't know if my child would have ever gotten the opportunity to find their voice. Because of the Fort Worth Community Arts Center, my performer and artist has a bright future and a second home at this building in Fort Worth. A cultural hub is meant to be a catalyst for building the next generation of artistic, cultural, and creative leaders. So if the task force aims to create a cultural hub in Fort Worth, respectfully, they cannot do any better than preserving the world-class building and Fort Worth Community Arts Center and its countless efforts to support, educate, connect, give access to, and celebrate the unique voices and work of generations of Fort Worth artists. If this building is going to be redeveloped, I support that, but encourage a continuance that will allow you to listen to the overwhelming voices that are asking you to require that it have galleries and theaters, and require that it remains a free community arts center that allows Fort Worth, Kids Who Care, Arts Fort Worth, and other organizations
Kat.
to use it to shape the future
Thank
of
you,
art
Kat. Your time's
for the better.
expired. Our next speaker is Rachel Gallet.
Rachel?
And can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead now.
Great. Good evening, Mayor Parker and council members. My name is Rachel Golay, and I am a resident of District 9. I'm also a local musician, and I'm proud to have called Fort Worth home for almost 20 years now. In January 2020, I was honored to represent the city through Here Fort Worth as an LGBTQ music ambassador at the New York Times Travel Show. And tonight, I want to echo the many folks who are speaking on behalf of the vital importance of community art space here in our city, and request that the RFP for 1300 Gendy be amended to require that galleries and theaters in the proposed space be included so that the Fort Worth Community Arts Center's mission can continue to benefit our city. Without a facility like Fort Worth Community Arts Center, I would not have made the many meaningful connections that I have made with fellow artists in a variety of different mediums. We need these kinds of cultural hubs to strengthen and invigorate the creative class that's vital to our city's thriving, both economically and culturally. From Kids Who Care to Arts Fort Worth to the early days of Amphibian Stage, which is now a beacon of our city, bringing in internationally renowned performances. It's clear that the kind of tangible impact this Home for the Arts has on improving the overall quality of life here in the city is not just for artists, but it's for everyday residents who deserve these kinds of authentic touch points with culture and community. If Fort Worth wants to remain an attractive and vibrant city, community art spaces like 1300 Gendy are not luxuries, they are necessities. And while we're lucky enough to be home to world-class museums, theaters, and galleries, publicly funded community art spaces fill a completely different niche that has been woefully underfunded over time. This is quite literally the place where artists of all ages get their first start, their first break, and even established artists are continuing to hone their craft. Our communities can thrive with equitable access to art and creative outlets, and together we can ensure that access continues and sustains well into Fort Worth's future. It's time for us to invest meaningfully in the kind of spaces where performers and artists of all kinds can call home. We should be adding to this ecosystem and not subtracting from it. And so I'd like to urge a continuance, or at the very least that the RFP be amended to require that gallery and theater spaces for community art at 1300 Gendy be included. Please take a stand to ensure that there is still a home for community arts programming here in Fort Worth. Thanks.
Here is Loretta Snoquezo.
Loretta?
Hello, yes.
Go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor Parker and council members. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you again today. My name is Loretta Snoquezo, and I live in District 11. I also have spoken to you in recent weeks on issues impacting the Rosemont neighborhood and Southside, but tonight I am also speaking to you on another important matter. Many others and I in Rosemont support this community arts center. For the last couple of years, I've personally been able to enjoy my children performing at the Scott Theater, and to see their faces light up when they see me in the audience means the world to me. This proscenium theater is so unique to Fort Worth and makes it such an enjoyable experience to see productions. It is also more importantly enjoyable for the children who can actually see their loved ones in the audience supporting them. The gallery space is one of the few remaining in Fort Worth that helps emerging artists that may not necessarily have the money or resources to showcase their art. The Fort Worth Community Arts Center should be regarded the same as a library or community center, as the focus should not be on revenue, but on preserving a place for emerging artists. The Fort Worth Community Arts Center provides an opportunity to emerging artists, actors, theater companies, and young dancers that may not necessarily have had this opportunity otherwise. Imagine a Fort Worth child who is an artist, actor, or dancer whose love for their art is so powerful they want to showcase it to the world. Now imagine that passion inside of them being stifled because they can't access a place to showcase that talent. I respectfully request that you all vote to postpone the resolution accepting the final report of the 1300 Gendy Task Force until language is added to the RFP that requires the art gallery space and the Scott Theater be preserved and that it will not be for profit. I truly hope after you all hear everyone speak on this matter that you will take the community's wishes into consideration and help preserve this existing community art and theater space. Help keep arts accessible to all in Fort Worth, regardless of socioeconomic class. Imagine how many children's dreams you will help make come true, that their creativity can be celebrated, regardless of what tax bracket their parents are in. Thank you.
Firm, Jeanette, is that the last of our calls?
That's the last of the callers for this item, yes.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Council, that's the last of our speakers on this item. I'll turn it over to council to, yeah. No, she withdrew her name, sorry. Councilmember Williams, I've got Councilmember Williams and Bivens up. No, y'all are just, okay, go ahead. Mayor Pro Tem Bivens, go ahead.
I get real excited when I see the people show up. And what makes me excited about that is because as we enter any kind of process, your presence is very important. Now, I really took note of the lady who used the word lobotomize. Okay. Well, there will be none of that here. But let me just tell you what really caught me in alignment with you, and that was when you referenced the remarks by Mr. Jordan Johnson, detailing his lineage in this city. I don't know him, but I was very concerned because we don't want anyone to think that this process can be tainted in any kind of way. And even though I don't know him, I don't think he intended to do that when he announced his plans to hopefully participate. I haven't seen Ames. Ames is always the tallest guy in the room, no matter where you are. But Ames did the same thing. But again, not for any type of heads up, if you will. But it makes me very concerned about the RFP process and that the remarks that you all shared with us tonight are reflected in that process because things must be transparent, fair shot for everyone. I don't know if you're going to have your way in terms of getting us to delay. I don't know. I'm just glad to see you. And I can tell you this entire council is made the better just by your being here. And I see you, I see Marty, and Quentin is gone, but this has been a great night for citizen engagement. And usually I don't like being here this long. But this has been a great night for input, for my city. And so, and I can promise you, the lady who used the word lobotomize, he'll get there eventually. We don't get a chance to go everywhere, but he represents your district with great passion. Mayor, that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Any other comments from council members on this item? Nope. Councilmember Hill, you have anything?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to reiterate, thank you all for coming and being the voice of the artist community. I think it's important to hear from you and hear what you have to say. I'd like to thank the task force because they really had a difficult job trying to figure out what to do in the situation and how best to approach it. Former Councilman Leonard Firestone, I think, did a great job of leading the charge. And thank you again for your comments the other day too as well. I really appreciate you speaking up and giving your opinion. I had a couple comments I wanted to make. I want to reassure everybody that an RFP is a request for a proposal. It is not a decision. When developers respond to those, we want to make sure they have the ability to be as creative as possible. These are artists too, and I think we need to take that in consideration. There's two sides to it. When they bring proposals to us, it's not this is how it's going to be. They're going to be reaching out to the artist community. A responsible developer that's going to respond to this project will reach out to the stakeholders, have interviews, want to understand exactly what the community wants and not just what they want. This is not a one-sided decision. So I just want to put that out there, that I think that we need, no matter how this ends up, we need to make sure that we are open-minded and that we do accept what the artists are bringing to us. This process has to be creative. There's a financial piece to it. We all get that. That's why we're in this situation. We also don't want to be in this situation in 10 or 20 years. So thank you.
Before I give remarks, I'm going to ask Fernando Costa to come to the microphone. I'm not going to make him give the whole presentation. I just thought, Fernando, as you listen to speakers this evening, is there any additional context or commentary you might want to give to the council this evening? And thank you for presiding over this process, as usual. I refer to Fernando Costa as the Professor Emeritus of City Hall. He does an amazing job, truly. And we appreciate you, Fernando, so please proceed.
Thank you, ma'am. I think it's fair to say that the comments you heard this evening were generally consistent with the comments that residents expressed to the task force at the task force's public meeting on March 30th. Those who are familiar with the Community Arts Center, those who use the Community Arts Center, feel strongly, for good reason, about preserving the values associated with that institution. I think the task force heard those remarks loud and clear and took them fully into account as they debated the merits of at least 3 different options, which began with the possibility of restoring the building and maintaining the status quo in respect to the services that are provided, to renovating the building and considering the addition of new uses, to the option of redevelopment, which contemplated the entertainment of new ideas, but expressing a clear preference for reflecting the history and the architecture of the Community Arts Center and including an arts incubator with gallery space and studio space and including a theater for live performances within any new development that might occur at 1300 Gendy. And so I think much credit goes to the task force led by former Councilmember Leonard Firestone for respectfully considering everything that the public expressed, not only at the public meeting, but in surveys that the task force conducted. The task force engaged in vigorous debate based upon factual information and engaged in meaningful compromise by including provisions that reflected a broad span of opinion about what should happen at 1300 Gendy. The acceptance of their report and even the issuance of the request for proposals, as Councilmember Hill has plainly stated, is only a starting point for consideration of ideas. It'll ultimately be subject to review by a committee. It'll be subject to a public meeting to air these ideas and to hear from the public. And ultimately, the City Council will receive the benefit of any proposal for redevelopment of Gendy, and the council will have the final say in what happens. That will take months. And so today is merely a starting point for that process based upon the fine work that the task force has performed for us already.
Thank you, Fernando. Appreciate that. Councilman Crane, did you have anything? I just saw your light going. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Fernando, very much.
Thank you.
I'm going to provide a little bit of context in how we got here, if that's helpful. So one of the first few meetings I had when I became mayor was actually with Kids Who Care and Deborah Jung. And I want to thank Deborah because I've spent a considerable amount of time in the Community Arts Center with my own children, and especially understand how the dressing rooms are in desperate need of improvement, having tried to get little girls in tutus in bad lighting. But Deborah brought to me issues in the facility of the building. And I appreciated that because, you know, a city of 1 million people, 350 square miles, there's any different things that can come at you. And truthfully, this maybe not have been such a priority. But I do agree, and many speakers articulated this, I think no one more eloquently than Quentin McGowan, that I do think the city of Fort Worth has ignored this building in particular and investment in the arts. We've been very proud of the monies given every year to Arts Fort Worth and the commitment we have to those community grants, and that is meaningful. But we have to do more. Because when you think about thriving U.S. cities in the country today, it is all about quality of life. And I know in the city of Fort Worth, each of you represented today would agree with me that our arts, a thriving arts community that is truly grassroots, is a piece of that quality of life. So fast forward a few weeks later, we contemplated, Fernando and I, what do you do that's appropriate to really think about the Community Arts Center, which is where this task force idea came up with. And truthfully, no task force works unless you ask Fernando Costa to lead it. But truthfully, thank you to Fernando for being willing to work on this effort together. I also was inspired by the words that Haley said earlier, that this is something, a building that can unite all of us together, and I do believe that art does that very well. I also felt like Ames Fender had some quotes in there that I could have written myself and understanding the importance of this particular building. And then I'll give you my why. Some of you have heard me talk about this. I was raised by a professional ballerina that only quit dancing because she needed to have children and she was getting too old. She would tell you that. She had a dance studio for 20 years of my young life, and I would not be sitting here today if it weren't for the art of ballet. Maybe I would be in New York dancing, which is what I thought I wanted to do. So an art is a part of my whole being and life, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. And the last thing I'll say, one of the first things I did with my adopted daughter was call Deborah's group at Kids Who Care, who was 10 years old. She'd never set foot in a theater, and said, I've got a little girl that has no idea what theater or dance is. Could you take care of her? And they did. Many of you have stories about Kids Who Care. So here's my on the record, and to Fernando's point, this is just a starting point. But as your mayor, I will not approve any RFP that doesn't maintain a priority and a requirement that includes that theater is maintained and you have a community art space. It's imperative to me. And I know that to Macy's well-put point, our architects and developers, they should be artists, the ones that are most interested in this space. The ones that come forward with big ideas should want to preserve that amazing theater into perpetuity, and also inspire the city to make the right level of investment that facility deserves into the future, which is how we got here in the first place, right? A long-term lease that required management operation by Arts Fort Worth, and of no fault of their own, not capable of doing that as an arts organization. That belongs to the city of Fort Worth as a facility and maintenance agreement. So all in all, that's where I am tonight. This is a starting point. I'm excited about what the task force has presented us. It is an aggressive timeline. I was very much on the record. I like aggressive timelines when it works, but we have full ability to slow things down as necessary along the way if we need to get there in order to make sure this community arts center remains a world-class, first-class art community arts center with also a new vision that's honestly complementary to what is already there without displacing our amazing community artists. So that's my perspective. I'll stop talking and I'll let council entertain a motion in a second. Thank you. And you go for it, Mason. There you go.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No,
go ahead.
Go to approve. You can motion.
I make a motion to approve the resolution accepting the final report of 1300 Gendy Task Force, authorizing city manager to proceed in implementing the task force recommendations.
Got a motion and a second. Any other discussion, council? Please vote. Thank you, council. And thank you all for coming this evening. Really appreciate you. And I look forward to working with you continually on this project. Thank you.
Next item is 230383.
Thank you. Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Please vote. Congratulations, Robert Aldridge and Val Washington. Rob needed more jobs.
Next item is 230387. And Mayor, we have one speaker.
Bob Willoughby, are you still here? Yeah. Okay. Bob, Mr. Willoughby, you're up to speak, sir. And this is on the resolution nominating Charlie Alsdorf to the Emergency Preparedness Planning Council. And Alan is an alternate. Yeah, you're up. Yeah.
I thought you'd let everybody get out of here a little bit before you moved on. Okay. All right. Well, Charles, here's the problem I have with I have with a lot of people up here. You know, the way we live nowadays, and the way our city's going and stuff. You know, you would think this is kind of a mockery, really. I mean, the council members and stuff should be people who have been to council meetings, bond meetings, budget meetings, knows what's going on, involved, and want to do the job for the people, not for themselves. But over the decades, we managed to turn this into a job that they do for themselves. And that's it. If you don't believe me, that's why they asked for a triple pay and raise last time.
Sustained. Yeah.
Then am I dead or what?
No, you just have to stay on topic, Bob. Thank you.
Okay, I was just explaining why I don't think Charles should be on this board. That's all. I'm just trying to make my case. Can I do that? Okay. Anyway, well, I don't think he should be on the board or whatever. I think you ought to appoint people to be on the board and learn how to be a council member first. So that's why we got community engagement, so they don't have to go out there. But anyway, I'll tell you what changed my mind on any of these council members. If you ever want to come on my show, fwdistrict5.com, they can come on my local voter education program.
Sustained. Bob, just stick with me here. Just turn and face.
Is Charles having a problem over there?
No.
He is, isn't he? I can see he's nodding up and down. Sure. Okay, I'll tell you what. We'll cut it short. We're going to cut it real short, Charles, because I don't think you got the galls to come on my show and meet me. So we're going to leave that. We'll stop, okay? We'll stop real quick.
Yeah. Bob, you're done. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you're here this evening. I appreciate you.
I'm just going to say, Maddie, you're my target.
Oh,
Bob,
good.
he's a Marine.
I don't know. Gina.
Oh, I love it.
Beck's not under chair there. Okay, thank you. Motion carries.
Next item is MNC 230481 with report by city staff Daniel Miracle.
The best last name ever.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hi, Daniel.
Hi, how are you, ma'am? Mayor, members, City Council, good evening. My name is Daniel Miracle. I'm a Senior Environmental Specialist from Environmental Quality Division in the Code Compliance Department. The purpose of today's public meeting is to receive public comment regarding MNC 23 MSD-031 relating to the establishment of a municipal setting designation for CHFW Rosedale LLC, Cambria Hotels, Fort Worth. Property located near the intersections of Jerome Street and Rosedale Street, to be referred to as CFW MSD 0031. Following any public comments, staff recommends closing public hearing and adopting MNC 23 MSD 031 and attached resolution and ordinance, thereby establishing CFW MSD 0031. The proposed MSD consists of approximately 2.458 acres located in Council District 9. The site is owned by CHFW Rosedale LLC. The subject property has historically been used for military training, local government administration, a gun range, waste storage, construction laydown area, which are believed to have contributed to the arsenic contamination in the groundwater. The exact metes and bounds description is provided in the ordinance that would prohibit the use of the designated groundwater under this site for potable or irrigation purposes. The site is currently zoned PD planned development. The chemical of concern identified in the groundwater beneath the site, exceeding applicable Tier 1 Texas Risk Regulation Program, commercial and industrial protective concentration levels, is arsenic. The designated groundwater is shallow, perched discontinuous groundwater that occurs at depths of approximately 15 to 50 feet below the ground surface. The affected shallow groundwater is underlain by naturally occurring confined layer, the Paw Paw Formation. The western portion of the site is underlain by the Fort Worth Limestone and Duck Creek Formations, undivided. These confining layers serve as a regional aquitard to prevent the vertical migration of chemical of concern to underlying potable aquifers. As part of the application process, staff from co-compliance, planning, data analytics, transportation and public works, development services, and the water department reviewed the application. No comments or concerns were made. The Code Compliance Environmental Quality Division is satisfied that this MSD will be protective of human health and the environment. A public meeting was held on May 18th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. at the Hazel Harvey Peace Center for Neighborhoods. 3 representatives of the applicant and 3 city staff members were present. No individuals from the community attended the public meeting. In advance of that meeting and today's hearing, written notice was sent to property owners within 1/2 mile of the MSD boundary, other municipalities within 1/2 mile of the MSD boundary, owners of registered water wells within 5 miles of the proposed MSD boundary, and retail public utilities and municipalities with groundwater supply wells within 5 miles of the MSD boundary. Again, following any public comments, staff recommends closing the public hearing and adopting MNC 23 MSD-031 and the attached resolution and ordinance, thereby establishing CFW MSD 0031.
Thank you, Daniel. Any questions from council? Councilmember Beck?
Move to close the public hearing and approve the MNC.
Motion and a second from Councilmember Nettles. Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion carries. Thank you, Daniel.
Next item is MNC 230508 with report by City Staff Lori Gordon.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have a presentation, if that would be helpful, to talk about the park conversion. If not, I don't know if it's easy to plug in or not. Anyway, I am here on behalf of the Park and Recreation Department to talk about the public hearing for the proposed use of a portion of Anderson Park for a permanent water maintenance area. Anderson Park is located in Council District 7, and it was dedicated in 1998 and is approximately 55 acres. The change of the park use, the Fort Worth Water Department is requesting 0.196 acres of parkland for a permanent water line maintenance area. The permanent maintenance area is for the relocation of an existing 20-inch water line due to the widening of Cromwell Marine Creek Road from 2 lanes to 4 lanes. The park impact, the construction is anticipated to begin in December of 2023 and last about 2 years. The contractor will install orange mesh fencing around the perimeter to keep the park attendees separated from the construction workspace, and 17 trees will be impacted with the construction, and there will be $27,200 paid to the Fort Worth Mitigation Tree Fund. It is recommended that City Council conduct a public hearing under the guidelines set forth by the Texas Parks and Wildlife Code, Chapter 26, Protection of Public Parks and Recreation Lands. Find that no feasible or prudent alternative exists for the use of Anderson Park for the installation of a permanent water line and associated maintenance area. Find that the proposed permanent water line and associated maintenance area includes all reasonable planning to minimize harm to the parkland, and close the public hearing and authorize the use of approximately 0.196 acres of dedicated parkland at Anderson Park for the proposed permanent water line and associated maintenance area. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Any questions, council? If not, Councilmember Hill.
I move to close that public hearing and approve MC 230508.
Motion and a second by Councilmember Bivens. Please vote. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item is MNC 230062, which earlier was announced that it was being withdrawn. So Mayor and Council, without objection, we will record this item as being withdrawn from the agenda.
No objection. Thank you, Jeanette.
The next item is its companion zoning case, which is ZC-22-192, with a correction that the correct council district should be Council District 10.
Councilmember Blaylock.
Hello, yes, as we have been informed that the developer is withdrawing, I have a motion to accept the request for withdrawal of zoning case CC 22-192.
Motion and a second. Please vote. Motion carries.
Next item is ZC-23-009.
Councilmember Larsdorf. Our first is David Gregory, who will be followed by Susan Kinney.
Good evening. My name is David Gregory, DCG Engineering, 1668 Keller Parkway, Suite 100, Keller, Texas, 76248. Thank you for agreeing to allow us to be here to present our case. To give you a little bit of back history, we're presenting a automated car wash with 17 vacuums, 110-foot tunnel in on a commercial piece of property off of North Tarrant Parkway, a little bit west of Ray White. It's a very unique piece of property. It's a multi-pad developed property that currently has a gas station, a brakes, plus a coffee shop and 2 vacant lots in addition to the one that we're here to talk about. It's surrounded by a park, has a lot of really beautiful natural trees. There are quite a few trees over on the western side of our property. We put together our site plan in a way that we were trying to be as conscientious to the neighborhood as possible, to where we would not get into any of the tree stands. We were trying to place it as close to North Tarrant Parkway as possible, so we could maintain a distance of over 300 feet from the tunnel entrance or exit to any of the residential properties that would be either to the north of us or on the opposite side of North Tarrant Parkway, south of an existing commercial set of businesses. We passed zoning commission with a split vote, and as we got close to city council, we had learned of a lot of neighborhood opposition. We had asked to be tabled. Council granted the tabling for us so we could meet with the neighborhood. In meeting with the neighborhood, we found that one of their biggest concerns was noise, and rightfully so. There was another business there that was exceeding noise ordinances, and I could see where that would be very irritating. One of the variances that we had originally asked for was to not install a fence on the adjacency because it would have put it into the floodplain, and we did not want to put any fences in a floodplain hazard to cause any potential damage or potential damage. In the zoning commission, we agreed to have that fence moved to the top of the existing retaining wall. We have agreed with the neighborhood associations that we would convert that fence to masonry to make it a sound wall. I know I'm getting short on time. If you would look at the exhibits that we have there, on the second exhibit that has a sound thermometer, that's list of a lot of common sounds. A vacuum cleaner at 10 feet is about 70 decibels, heavy traffic, et cetera. What we're proposing with our car wash is approximately 49 decibels. And on the last page is a copy of the sound study that would show you decibels.
Thank you, David. Our next speaker is Susan Kinney, followed by Rusty Fuller.
Good evening, Mayor Parker and City Council members. I'm Susan Kenny, President of the Parkland Neighborhood Association, a neighborhood located in North Fort Worth and directly south of this proposed car wash on North Tarrant Parkway. The Parkland Neighborhood Association Board of Directors and many residents ask that the City Council and Mayor vote no to this request for a conditional use permit for this car wash. Residents from Park Glen as well as Coventry Hills and other nearby neighborhoods attended a meeting with the developer representative on May 22nd. The residents present had many concerns, especially concerning the noise that will be generated from this car wash, as well as environmental and property value concerns. The noise from this car wash will be heard from nearby homes in Coventry Hills and from homes in Park Glen, where the car wash opening will be approximately 360 feet away from Park Glen homeowners. Coventry Hills homes are even closer at 300 feet. As an example, a car wash on nearby Beach Street, south of North Tarrant Parkway, can be clearly heard from the CVS parking lot, also about 360 feet away. The developer is offering today that he will put in a new type of blower that will produce a noise level of 72 decibels instead of 90 decibels at 10 feet away, and that it will sound like a dishwasher in an adjacent room at the adjacent homeowners' properties. This car wash will be continually run for customers from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. A dishwasher usually only runs once a day. There will be a noise impact to adjacent homeowners. In addition, how can we be assured that these blowers will not be changed out later or less expensive and louder blowers, or when they need to be replaced? Also, the vacuums that customers will be using to clean their cars will add to the sound for nearby homeowners, as well as the machinery, as well as other machinery besides the blowers. Residents were also concerned with the runoff from this site into the floodplain, which leads to Arcadia Park, which is a 20-acre natural park in the neighborhood. The developer confirmed that there will be some runoff into the floodplain. These chemicals will affect the fish, turtles, and birds. Residents also question what is the value to the neighborhood. There are already at least 12 car washes within a 3-mile radius. In preparation for this meeting, I went to the proposed car wash site. I saw a resident walking their dog on the sidewalk in front of this proposed car wash, and I also noticed that there was a large green space west of the site and floodplain. I have been told that this property is owned by the city and is a future park site. The noise on the sidewalk for passersby will be very loud at only 50 feet away. This car wash use is not permitted by right, and we ask you that you preserve the residents' quality of life and use their properties use of their properties from this noise encroachment and protect the environment and property values by denying this request for a conditional use permit for this proposed car wash. Thank you so much.
Our next speaker is Rusty Fuller, followed by Chris Kittle.
Welcome back, y'all. Hi, I'm Rusty Fuller, and I'm still president of the North Fort Worth Alliance. We represent 43 homeowners associations and neighborhood associations in the far north. We also work with other homeowners associations on common issues like this one. I want to welcome a fellow Marine to your council, and who could do emergency procedures better than a Marine. Hopefully you've had a chance to read our email opposing the conditional use permit. I'll try not to repeat too much of that. You've heard from the neighborhoods, and you'll hear from some of the residents about their reasonings for opposing the development: noise, economic development, and visual pollution. We want you to be aware of the effects of such a development on suburban residential neighborhoods. The noise standards the city uses do not take into account urban and suburban environments. Therefore, we must rely on the council to use its judgment in cases like this where options are available. This does not only apply to our area, but the other developing residential areas in the south, southwest, southeast that are accommodating so many of our new members to Fort Worth. There are 5 car washes within 3 miles of this site. That is only within the city of Fort Worth. If one looks into the cities of Watauga and Keller, there are 6 more within 2 miles. Sound economic development is not met by adding to a marketplace that already seems saturated. One last point, we would offer that since the zoning ordinance requires a conditional use permit, there ought to be some presentation by the developer that the CUP is in the best interest of the city and the neighbors. There is no such presentation. Absent stated benefits of the car wash, the opposition of the neighborhoods, the suburban residential neighborhood on which this car wash will impinge, we argue that council should not accept the findings of the zoning commission and deny the conditional use requested in zoning case 23009, double thing 09. There are things, right?
Thank you, Rusty.
Thank y'all, and thanks again for that bridge. Oh my gosh, thanks again for that bridge.
Yes, absolutely. Our next speaker is Chris Kittle, followed by Kim Rutherford.
Good evening, Mayor Parker, council members, staff. I am Chris Kittle, and I live in Coventry Hills neighborhood, which is directly behind this proposed car wash. I want to share some of my concerns about this business being so close to our neighborhood. When the representative met with the neighbors last month, he mentioned possibly needing to reduce more trees for the building. And I'm concerned about just how much more of the green space will be removed and just how far beyond the already fenced area the facility will be. We've seen an increase in wildlife on our streets due to the reduction of their habitat from the original clearing of the property, and this potential additional reduction is concerning. We've also been told that the facility will have 17 vacuum bays, and while it may be rare that all of them would be used simultaneously, they will still be running even while unused, and this will produce significant noise to the adjoining properties. I received a letter from the representative that stated that the developer planned to install acoustic screens at the end of the tunnel, which is on the North Tarrant side. However, nothing was mentioned about blocking noise from the vacuums. At last month's meeting with the representative, it was mentioned a cedar fence may be added at the back of the facility, but a cedar fence will do nothing to reduce noise. We have seen an increase in vagrants in our area. The way the representative has described the fencing would lend to an area homeless individuals may set up camp behind the building between the fence and the existing half wall. And honestly, we actually already have a place literally 2 streets down where there is a homeless, I wouldn't call it a camp necessarily, but where homeless are residing. And so the soap and the water will just draw them even further closer into our neighborhood. And since we really do not have enough police officers to patrol our area as it is, this is really not safe for our community. And according to the representative, there would be room for 30 cars waiting to enter the car wash, and each cycle is 2 minutes. And if you've driven in that area, right there off of North Tarrant, you will see that there's a curve in the road right at the exit of the clearing where they were going to be building this building. And I'm concerned that there will be an increase in accidents as people enter and exit the car wash right there just because they cannot see very well. Furthermore, there will be an increase in exhaust and noise from the waiting cars, and our neighborhood pool is right in that area. The car wash does not benefit our neighborhood. It does not add value to our area as there is an existing car wash down the street at Beach and North Tarrant. I'm asking that you deny with prejudice this zoning change. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Kim Rutherford, followed by Michael Snyder.
Good evening. I am Kim Rutherford, and I live in the Coventry Hills neighborhood, and my backyard directly faces the proposed car wash. I want to share some concerns over the proposed car wash. When David Gregory met with us, he said that more trees will likely need to come down. This concerns me. With the effects to the wildlife. With animals losing their habitat and looking for new homes, this becomes a safety issue for families and pets. We were told that there will be 17 vacuums and up to 12 blowers and open 14 hours a day. This will cause significant noise issues to the residents on Coral and Western Meadows, which I am affected by. Imagine losing most of your backyard recreation to 17 vacuums while at the same time competing with 7 brew. We live in a quiet neighborhood, and the vacuum blowers at 60 decibels will take that away. The community pool is about 300 feet from the proposed car wash. We are concerned with the amount of smog and pollution that will cover our pool. We have begun to also see a high increase in panhandlers and homelessness in our area. The car wash on Beach Street has several campsites set up, and the concern is the same thing happening in Coventry Hills. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Michael Snyder on the phone.
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yes, my name is Michael Snyder, and I am the Vice President of the Homeowners Association of Coventry Hills. You've heard that neighborhood mentioned. It is the community just north of the proposed car wash. And I don't want to keep repeating what everybody else has said, but I will say that as soon as the word spread about this proposed car wash, our Facebook page lit up like a Christmas tree with people dissenting of this decision. And I represent 499 homeowners that are directly affected by this. And it is almost unanimous that they are not in favor of this. As far as the pollution goes, as I said, our community pool is within 300 feet. And also the cars will enter through the rear of the car wash. So those cars will be aimed during dusk and dawn. Their headlights will be aimed right into the back windows of the line of homes that are right behind the car wash as well. So besides that, we appreciate the mayor and the council hearing our stories that we have tonight, and thank you so much. And we strongly consider the zoning requests that we are making. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Our next speaker is Christy Shallcross. Is Christy here? No? Thank you, Rusty. That's the conclusion of our speakers. Councilmember Larsdorf.
All right. Well, first of all, I think it's clear that North Fort Worth really likes to have our cars clean with the number of car washes we have. But David, I do want to thank you for when trying to bring business to North Fort Worth, especially District 4. I do appreciate that. And I do appreciate you making the effort to reach out to the neighborhoods, to take the time to actually sit down with them and try to go over some of their concerns. Even from the initial sit down, trying to come back with different ideas as far as noise mitigation, some of the runoff mitigation, all the other methods you came up with. Even today, receiving an email about upgrading the noise blockers to even further reduce the noise. I do appreciate that as well. That said, I think it's quite clear the opposition is so strong. I've received numerous emails, numerous Facebook groups I'm part of. It was strong opposition. Unfortunately, I did not receive one that did want it. And as you mentioned, this was sort of bad timing with the coffee shop next door, the one place you would not assume there'd be noise complaints. However, we had numerous noise complaints. We had forward police out there, code compliance out there for a coffee shop with loud music. I think that issue has been resolved. However, I think one of the issues with this car wash proposal is if there are in fact noise, if it is higher than these estimates, at that point, it'll be a little too late to do anything about it. At the end of the day, even if this was something I strongly wanted for myself, my job up here is to represent my district and the 92,000 plus that are there. If there was just one house whose quality of life would be affected by this, I have to take that into strong consideration, especially someone who spends a lot of time in my backyard, in my little refuge. I deal with noise on Parkwood Hill Boulevard all the time, but I knew that moving in. These neighbors, when they moved in, this was not something that they were planning on. They have no doubt, I've spoken with them numerous times, they have no doubt something will go there. But I think we all agree that we just want to be a little bit more friendly to the neighborhoods, friendly to those who live nearby. And so with that, I motion to deny the request.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion, council? Please vote. Jean is not here. Motion carries.
Next item is ZC-22-156.
We have one speaker on this item, but only if there's opposition, which I believe there is none. Councilmember Crane.
Yeah, Mayor, actually, I got word today the developers are going to abandon this deal, and so I moved to actually withdraw this request.
Okay. Motion to withdraw and a second by Councilmember Flores. Please vote.
Next item is ZC-23-068.
And I believe we need a motion to continue this item to a future meeting, but first we have two speakers. The first is Tanel Taylor, followed by Craig Cavalier, both by phone.
Hello, this is Tanel Taylor with Fifth Corner. I'll be very brief. We believe that this zoning proposal to change some of the zoning designations within the MU2 areas is not going to address any of the issues that are of concern. We support a solution that is based on security and infrastructure improvements. We'd like to be part of the process. We're open for communication with any of the council members that are interested in it and with the neighboring property owners. And that's all I have to say. It's getting late, so I'll finish with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next caller is Craig Cavalier.
We were not able to reach him.
Thank you. That's the last of our speakers. So a motion for continuance to, what is it, August 13th? Is it current?
August 8th.
Okay, thank you. August 8th. Somebody has to do that besides me. Go ahead.
I'll move to continue this item until the August 8th City Council meeting.
Second.
Motion and a second. Please vote. Thank you, Elizabeth. Motion carries.
Next item is ZC-22-223.
Councilmember Hill, we have two speakers on this item. Ben Rafe, followed by Corey Keller. I don't think there's opposition.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Ben Rafe with Peloton Land, representing the applicant, developer, and home builder. So I know it's getting late, so I will speak swiftly. So currently, over in the Barcy Ranch neighborhood, there's a school there and a bunch of residences. There's a property that's zoned for kind of like a higher intensity commercial area. And rather than develop it in that nature, the home builder and developer wants to convert that to a more palatable use in the area, which would be residential, right? So they're looking to put some townhomes in there. This property also lies on the Fort Worth Saginaw boundary line. And so this development will also extend into Saginaw, which we're currently having conversations with Saginaw. But two takeaways tonight. So number one is we've reached out to the citizens in the area, and we've collaborated with them. We've heard a response that they're okay with the change in land use, but they do want maybe a cap on the density because this is townhomes, right? So I think there's a higher density than what they want. And so they've basically told us that they would like 8 units per acre. So we would like to amend the motion tonight to actually add that cap onto the zoning PD regulations tonight. So item 1 is if we can set a cap at 8 units per acre, that would be great. And then the other one is we would like to waive the requirement for the site plan. And this is because as we're working with both Fort Worth and Saginaw, things tend to change and mold over time. Nothing too serious. It's just a townhome development. But we do want that flexibility to not have to come back and present a site plan of townhomes to y'all. So that's the request. Convert the property to townhome, and number 1, cap the density at 8 units per acre, and 2, waive the requirement for a site plan. So that's the request. Thank you.
Questions for Ms. Hill?
No questions, and I move to approve ZC 22223.
I'm going to confirm that we have one more speaker, Corey Keller.
Sorry.
You're good. Is Corey here? Go ahead, Corey.
Good evening, Corey Keller, 409 Mesa View Trail. I come here representing the 1,100 homes for Barcy Ranch. We are in favor of this proposal, and after the zoning commission, it came to my realization that there could be 24 townhomes per acre in this zoning in R2, and that became a concern because of the price point that could possibly add. The price point on these townhomes has been presented to us to be about $400,000 per townhome, and that would keep away any investors in rental-owned properties on these townhomes. And they've talked about doing this amendment to the 8. We would be for that. That's primarily just to maintain that as we would like this to be A5, but we're realistic about the economics of this property. And so at this price point and at this density that they're proposing, this is workable for our community. It will not do anything. We do not want this to be the current PD 514. We do want the R2. We just want the cap on there, and this will be a fantastic addition to our area. Thank you.
Thank you, Corey. Councilmember Hill? Yes, sir. Okay. Yep.
Yes, I just want a clarification from staff. Stephen, is it possible to have a PD without a site plan?
Yes, it is possible.
Okay, just wanted to confirm
Site
that.
plan waiver is something that we do every once in a while.
Right, but my question specifically was with a PD. Just wanted to be sure of that.
That's correct,
Okay.
yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hill?
Okay. I want to make a motion to amend the 22223, 8 units per acre, and waive the site plan requirement.
Perfect. Motion and a second. Any other discussion, council? Please vote. Motion carries.
Next item is ZC-22-202.
No speakers on this item. Councilmember Williams.
Move to deny with prejudice.
Motion on the floor. Motion and a second. Please vote. Motion carries.
Next item is ZC-23-0448.
We have one speaker on this item. Councilmember Beck, only if there's opposition, which there is none.
None. Move to approve. This is a different one.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion carries.
Next item is ZC-23-051.
Our first speaker, Councilmember Beck, is Rick Garcia, followed by Michael Howell.
Because the rooftop of this proposed duplex would be used as a bar for the TCU students. And for the safety of the students, if it was approved, I think 25, is it 35 feet? Yeah, 35 feet is the maximum height right now. And so I'm going to ask Councilman Beck to initiate a request to move that down to 25 feet. I want to go on the record saying that. Small businesses that can go on this lot would be something that's eco-friendly. There are grants, SBA loans that would cater to, let's say, bicycle repair shop. Everybody likes to ride their bikes, right? Fort Worth is a bike-friendly city. Something to do with maybe batteries, solar, something to help with the ecosystem to make Fort Worth more friendly toward the environment. That'd be a great small business. The zoning commission asked me for recommendations. I thought about it for a couple of weeks, and that's what I came up with. Please deny with prejudice.
Thank you, Mr. Howell. Our next speaker is Daniel Leach.
Mr. Leach?
This is Daniel. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
All right, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Daniel Leach, and I live on Wayside Avenue. I'm on the board of the Passable Neighborhood Association. In regards to the duplex proposed on Stanley Avenue, all the responses that we received from the neighborhood were in opposition to this rezoning. Our neighborhood, as well as surrounding neighborhoods, have been bombarded with stealth dorms being built. They are taking over neighborhoods. The TCU overlay, which applies only to single-family zoning, and limits the number of unrelated persons to 3 per dwelling, was designed to preserve the single-family neighborhoods surrounding TCU by preventing the self-dorms. The 2-family rezoning that has been happening is an attempt to sidestep the TCU overlay by making the zoning 2-family and thus allowing up to 10 units per property and 10 unrelated persons per property. The owner and developers are stating that they're wanting to create housing for TCU students. This is evident as you drive up and down McCart or Forest Park and see the duplexes going up that have their sorority and fraternity flags flying from the balconies. The TCU student housing issue is being addressed by TCU, and they are building additional dorms to appease their need. The fix to student housing issue is not to push the problem into the local residents that have lived here for decades, or to rezone a single-family neighborhood to bring in 6 to 10 unrelated persons per lot. We have not seen any type of site plan, but this specific applicant mentioned that they are not trying to do that, the 5-bedroom duplexes, and that they're just a small-time developer and builder that wants to do a 3-bedroom, 2-bath side-by-side. While doing a quick Google search, you can see that this developer owns at least 2 other duplexes less than a half mile away on the Cart and Forest Park corridor. If you've been down this corridor, you're familiar with the 5-bedroom duplexes that are there. These are no different. Both of these properties have a flex balcony on the top structure that operates as a 4th floor. This specific area is zoned as planned development for light industrial. There are a few businesses that have moved in recently on this strip. We would like to see other small businesses move in to this area, such as barbershops, boutiques, coffee shops, restaurants. Our neighborhood does not have an accessible park without having to cross over large busy roads, such as Forest Park or 8th Avenue. This area would be perfect to create a walkable gathering place with businesses and open space for our families to enjoy. Please deny with prejudice.
Thank you. That's the conclusion of our speakers. Councilmember Beck.
Move to deny with prejudice.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion carries.
Next item is ZC-23-053.
No speakers on this item. Councilmember Hill.
The homeowner has withdrawn this request. I make a motion to request the withdrawal of ZC 23053.
Motion and a second. Please vote. Jared, yeah, thank you. Motion carries.
Next item is ZC-23-054.
Motion and a second. Please vote.
No.
Motion carries.
Next item is ZC-23-055.
Hold on, there we go. Catching up here, Jeanette, just a second. Sorry. You're all good. 055, we have a few speakers on this item. Our first one is Melanie Goders, followed by Letitia Wilburn.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having me. Excuse me. I'm Melanie Goders. I'm the general contractor doing some capital improvements for this subject property. I know we're short on time. I wanted to make this nice and brief. You've heard the skinny of it. What we proposed this evening is essentially to continue the current zone. I'll say this, let me put it backwards. In 2018, the zoning for this particular property was changed from light industrial to the intensive commercial. The 4 of the 5 buildings are still occupied by users, long-term users that were still function in those light industrial uses. The reason we ask for the additional uses is so that we can backfill the vacant building. It's been vacant for 5 years with a similar use on the similar on the property with its neighbors. I will keep it brief. I'm yammering. If you have any questions, please feel free.
Thank you. Councilmember Bivens.
I'm going to be making a motion to continue this until August 8th. And the reason why is because the defunct neighborhood associations information had still been given out to companies like yours. The Carver Heights East Association has been newly reactivated. And so I'm going to make a motion to rezone this until August 8th and ask you to get with staff to get the contact information for the new officers.
Of Cover Heights
East.
East. Okay, all right, great.
Thank you. I've got a motion and a second on the floor, but we do still have one more speaker, Letitia Wilburn.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi there.
A few hours ago. Letitia Wilburn, I just want to say that I am in agreement with the continuance. Looking at this, there's no clear definition as to what they're trying to do at the particular property. My concern is, of course, you all know that I'm with the coalition, Echo Heights 6 Environmental Coalition. So I'm really concerned about what will go in that particular spot. Something that really puzzles me is that, it actually bothers me, is that on a trip to New York, I was in Manhattan, I met a foreigner and we laughed back and forth about our accents. And when he found out I was from Fort Worth, he became kind of a little moody towards Fort Worth, and he considered Fort Worth as the closest thing to South Africa as to any place he's ever been. And he travels a lot, and he's actually been to South Africa. And y'all's zoning process is very racist. It's racist to the core. It is apartheid, and it is oppressive. These Black and brown communities suffer from y'all's zoning. Everything comes there is negative. There's nothing good that comes to these communities. That's 5 acres. You could use restaurants there. You could put, like one place was here, art facilities there. This side of town does not have anything recreational that's good for the community. I mean, it's insane. I know Mike Tyson, and I said this last night, and I'll say it again, I'm not advocating violence, but Mike Tyson said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Is it going to take these Black and brown communities to come together to punch Fort Worth in the mouth so that you all can see that we deserve the same quality of life that our white counterparts deserve and the rich counterparts deserve? Fort Worth is a city of the haves and the have-nots, and the have-nots suffer at the expenses of the haves. I know. I'm a retired police deputy sheriff that decided to live in the community where I bought a home in 1985. So I just would say this has no definition as to what's going there, and it does need to be continued. And I recommend highly that the city, to avoid publicly being embarrassed nationally, come together and decide to start doing something good for these Black and brown communities instead of always doing negative. We can go national, and we will. Y'all need to step up y'all's game.
That's the conclusion of our speakers, Councilmember Bivens. I've got a motion and a second on the floor. I don't remember who seconded your motion. It was your continuance. Who was the second? Thank you, Jared. Please vote. Motion carries.
Next item is ZC-23-056.
No speakers on this item. Councilmember Flores.
Move for approval.
Motion and a second. Please vote. Motion carries.
Next item is ZC-23-057.
No speakers on this item. Councilmember Hill. Hit it twice. There you go.
There we go. I'm going to get it right one of these days. After speaking with the developers and no opposition from the Neighborhood Association and support from White Settlement ISD, I move to approve.
Motion and a second. Please vote. Motion carries.
Next item is ZC-23-070.
We have one speaker only. There's opposition, which I believe there is none. Councilmember Beck.
Move to approve.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion carries.
Next item is ZC-23-072.
Council, we have one speaker on this item, but only if there's opposition, which I believe there is none.
Move to.
Motion and a second. Please vote. Elizabeth. Motion carries.
Next item is MNC 23-0381.
Motion and a second. Please vote. Which item are you on? Sorry. 0381. Let's do a hand vote then while she finds it. Got a motion. Carlos Flores as a motion. Is that who it was? Sorry, I missed it.
Crane and-
Michael.
Yeah.
Elizabeth was a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any nays? Motion carries.
Next item is MNC 23-0498.
Motion and a second by Carlos Flores. Please vote. Motion carries.
Next item is MNC 23-0476.
Councilmember Flores.
Yes, Mayor, it's my motion. I move that the city of Fort Worth, that the Fort Worth City Council adopt the resolution authorizing use of the power of eminent domain to acquire 0.0521 acres in the right-of-way and 0.0890 acres in the public open space easement from real property owned by North Fort Worth Baptist Church. The land rights in the subject property are needed for the Cantrell-Sampson Road widening project, a public use that will widen and connect the roadway. The property will be used for the permanent grading, construction, maintenance, and repair of Cantrell-Sampson Road. The public open space easement will provide traffic visibility for the new road connection. The property is located at 5801 North Freeway in the North Fort Worth Baptist Church Edition, Block 1, Lots 1A, City of Fort Worth, Tarrant County, Texas. The property interest to be acquired is described by meets and bounds and depicted by survey exhibits attached to this Mayor and Council communication.
Councilmember Williams, please vote. Motion carries.
Next item is MNC 23-0500.
Move to approve.
Please vote. Motion carries.
And Mayor, that concludes all of the items for today.
Council is adjourned.